Are iceberg videos even a thing anymore? I guess they're not as popular as they used to be a few years ago. It's considered a meme, if anything, but what better way to discuss obscure random facts and crazy theories of a topic you're passionate about than an iceberg video? It really is the perfect way to organize all the chaotic facts you know about something you like. So you clicked on the video. I imagine you know what Sonadow is, and I don't think an explanation is necessary. I would also assume that you are curious about the iceberg and want to know how deep it goes. As you can see from the length of this video, it goes very deep. One of the things I love about the Super Mario 64 iceberg video by Mish Cause is that while it had its share of over-the-top creepy theories, most of the iceberg felt informative to me. I actually learned things about Mario 64 that I would have never known had I not watched it. My hope is to provide that same experience for this video. While there are a few theories scattered throughout the iceberg, I'll primarily cover topics and observations about the games, comics, and TV shows that relate to the ship, as well as its history with Sega and the internet. Regardless of how you feel about Sonadow, please keep things civil in the comments. Of course, you don't have to like the ship, and you are entitled to your headcanons and opinions, but that doesn't give you an excuse to be a jerk, or worse, homophobic. Again, you saw the title and you clicked on this video. You should know what you're getting yourself into, so don't whine to me about how I ruined your childhood. Not that there's anything in here that would ruin a childhood, so. If you are someone who doesn't understand the ship's appeal and wonder why it's become so popular within the past couple years, I don't know if this iceberg will change your mind on anything. This video was not intended for that purpose, and I wouldn't look at this as a full-fledged relationship analysis, but if you're willing to stick around, I promise you that there is more to this pairing than, oh, they're rivals and people have this fascination of shipping rivals together. One last thing, this was made before the release of Sonic and Shadow Generations and the Sonic 3 movie. While I should probably hold out for those, I've been working on this iceberg video for several months at this point, and I have to set a cutoff date. Not to worry, with all of Sonic Team's shenanigans, this iceberg is ever expanding, and it's highly likely that I will revisit it in the future. But even then, this ship is so big that there's a good chance that I missed things from the games and various media. To my Sonadow scholars, if you identify anything that I did not cover, feel free to share in the comments. Thank you. With all that said, there is a lot to discuss, so get comfortable and let's plummet to the depths of the Sonadow Iceberg. Sonic Adventure 2 and official artwork. Ah yes, the game that started the ship. Sonic Adventure 2 was released on June 19, 2001, and introduced Sonic's biggest rival, Shadow the Hedgehog. It is a very good game with a fantastic story. I like it a lot. The Supersonic and Shadow transformation sequence is said to be the catalyst that fueled the ship. The way they gaze into each other's eyes and how their hands almost touch. The things they tell each other during the final Hazard boss fight. They did share a brief but strong bond near the end of the game, and that did not go unnoticed by Sonadow fans. Additionally, the official artwork of Sonic and Shadow caught the attention of Sonadow enthusiasts. Fans jokingly say that it's canon Sonadow art because they're close enough to kiss. Now, non-shippers will say that this is supposed to showcase their rivalry in a single picture, and that is completely true. This artwork does represent their rivalry very well. It really depends on who you ask. You either see two rivals or gay, or both. There's also the Sonic Adventure 2 vinyl that's caught the attention of the shippers. If you look closely, Shadow's hand is placed precariously behind Sonic's tuchus, and I mean, do you really need me to explain it in detail? At least Sonic looks happy, right? Yeah, once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'm sure this was an oversight, completely unintentional. But I suppose one could point out that Sega has made some interesting marketing decisions, and you're certainly not wrong to point that out. Regardless, there is no denying the impact that this game had on the community and started one of the biggest queer ships in gaming. Sonic IDW issue number 6 and 35. These are two issues that are quite popular amongst the Sonadow fanbase. Starting with issue number 6, Shadow pins Sonic up against a tree, and Sonic looks like he might be enjoying it. The way this was illustrated was a choice, quite the interesting choice. While I agree that this gives the Sonadow vibes, I also feel that there are other minor moments in this issue that get overlooked. One thing that stuck out to me during their little squabble is how Shadow reminds Sonic that Eggman has tried to destroy him multiple times. I think it's really telling that Shadow focuses on the things that Eggman has specifically done to Sonic, instead of stating all of the other crimes Eggman has committed. Eggman has blown up half of the moon, taken planets hostage to make an amusement park, even split the Earth into different pieces, and yet Shadow focuses on the pain that Eggman has inflicted on Sonic. Another highlight for me is Shadow's expression when Sonic's words get through to him. Also, the way Sonic looks at Shadow after he lets him go. I like how Sonic's silhouette emphasizes his eyes when Shadow tells him, "You lured me away." This singular moment ends up being the domino effect to the Metal Virus saga. You'll see that Shadow struggles with trusting Sonic's judgment, and it all stems back to this specific moment. They recreated this in issue number 67, and it's even gayer. Sonic's smile is much more apparent, and it looks like he's actually enjoying Shadow pinning him up against a tree. "Okay, I'm ready. Put it in," I said. And he replied, "It's already in." My world collapsed. Okay, I've read Britney Spears' memoir, and I can confirm that this statement is not in the book, but it's still kind of funny. Highly recommend reading The Woman in Me, by the way, a fantastic read. Sonic IDW issue 35 was released on December 2nd, 2020. What makes this issue popular amongst Sonadow fans is that in one of the panels, Shadow catches Sonic from falling to his death and holds him bridal style. This was arguably the biggest Sonadow moment to happen in the comics during that time, and a lot of fan art was spawned after this issue was released to the public. Very cute. It's also worth mentioning that IDW includes other little crumbs for the Sonadow fans. One of my personal favorites is the variant cover art for issue number 27. It's gaming night, and Sonic and Shadow are sharing a beanbag chair while they're playing video games. And they are sitting really close together. They are cheek to cheek and sweating. That's nasty. I consider it Sonadow because I don't know about you people, but the only person I would ever allow to sit that close to me is my significant other. I also like this brief moment they share in issue number 36. "I heart you too, Shadow." Sonic Prime is a TV show that premiered in December 2022 on Netflix. It has a total of 3 seasons, and at the time of making this video, it's still up in the air if we'll ever get a follow-up season. Many fans jokingly call the show Sonadow Prime because there are a lot of Sonadow moments throughout the episodes. A few of them will be referenced later in the Iceberg. Now, this show really catered to Sonadow fans, covering one of the biggest Sonadow moments in Sonic Prime. In Season 2, Episode 8, Shadow saves Sonic from being hit by a barrage of missiles. He says that he's probably going to regret that, and Sonic responds with, "I heart you too, Shadow." Fun fact, in other language dubs, Sonic says, "I love you too, Shadow," which makes sense because the phrase, "I heart you too," would be awkward to translate. The haters swear up and down that it doesn't mean anything, and that Sonic and Shadow have more of a brotherly relationship in Prime, and it's fine if you think of them more like siblings. However, I would like to point out that if Sonic told Amy, "I heart you too," fans would be hollering about how Sonic loves Amy, and you wouldn't be saying they're like siblings, so. Sonadow TikTok. At the time of making this video, Sonadow is the most popular Sonic ship on TikTok by a wide margin. Surprisingly, there's a large gap between Sonadow and Sonamy. But I guess when you think about it, TikTok is widely used by the girls, the gays, and the theys. Fun fact, when I first made my TikTok account in 2021, Sonamy was the most popular Sonic ship, but sometime in late 2022, Sonadow took the throne. Unfortunately, TikTok doesn't show the amount of views a hashtag gets anymore. which, for my purposes, is disappointing because views are a huge factor with ranking the ship's popularity. I mean, it shows how much people go out of their way to watch this content. Instead, TikTok now shows the amount of posts under the hashtag. As of August 18th, 2024, the Sonadow hashtag has approximately 62,300 posts, while Sonamy has about 35,400 posts. The last time I checked view count was probably sometime last year, so this is definitely outdated information, but I believe Sonadow had 450 million collective views, while Sonamy was around 200 to 230 million, I think. While I think Sonamy is bigger on other platforms, it's quite interesting to see the shift in popularity, especially as someone who liked Sonadow during the 2010s when it wasn't as widely accepted as it is today. Funny enough, Netflix Latin America took notice of Sonadow's popularity. In one of the Sonic Prime promos they posted, it was filled with Sonadow shipping comments. It was pretty funny, and whoever ran the Netflix Latin America account would respond and feed into it. Like this comment, for example. "This show is enemies to lovers." Unrelated to TikTok, a couple other company social media accounts have shown support of the ship. In November 2020, the official Tumblr account commented on Hipster Silver's Sonadow art on Twitter. Amazing artist, by the way, please check them out. Discord wished the Sonic social media account a happy birthday. The Sonic account responded, and interestingly, Discord's official Twitter account responded back with this image of Sonic and Shadow surrounded by hearts. So sweet. I guess you can argue that they weren't intending for it to be Sonadow, but come on. The hearts? Sonic Pride statue. On Reddit, someone posted a picture of a Sonic statue wearing a Pride and trans flag during Pride Month. If you look closely, there's a small sign that says, "Please do not climb on the Sonic." Yeah, that's pretty much it. While it isn't completely Sonadow specific, it has garnered quite a bit of attention from the fanbase. The Sonic statue is currently preserved in the National Video Game Museum, so that's pretty cool. Sonic and Shadow White House photo. As you know, in Shadow the Hedgehog, the president has a picture of Sonic and Shadow standing in front of the White House on his desk. We can surmise that this picture was taken sometime after the events of Sonic Heroes. I've already made a video on it, so I won't go into too much detail, but I've had so many questions on how this picture came to be. Who set this up? What all had to be done to bring Sonic and Shadow to the White House? Why are they posing like a golden retriever and black cat couple? We may never know. Swashbuckling duo. In May 2021, Sega Hardlight announced their latest update to Sonic Dash for Sonic's 30th anniversary. It's Captain Shadow and Pirate Sonic, the swashbuckling duo. The Sonadow community had a field day over this and kept screenshotting the definition of swashbuckling: engaging in daring and romantic adventures with bravado or flamboyance. To be fair, they mean romantic as in dreamy idealism. However, if you are familiar with queer history, gay activity was not uncommon amongst pirates, so maybe Sega Hardlight was onto something. At least their outfits look good, unlike the tragedy that is Halloween Shadow. Ugh. A file called Sonadow. So, a little history about the Twitter takeovers. In 2015, the Sonic social media team launched its first ever Sonic Twitter takeover. Technically an Eggman Twitter takeover, because apparently Eggman took over the channel and answered questions. But as time progressed, more and more Sonic characters would join in and answer fan questions. Shadow made his first appearance in the 2017 Twitter takeover to promote the game Sonic Forces. If you're on social media, you've probably heard at least a clip or two at some point. And as the years went on, the Twitter takeovers got increasingly heavy with the fan service, to the point where it's kind of obnoxious, in my opinion. Despite the amount of shipping moments in the takeovers, it's worth noting that it's very out of character, and that's why I personally lost interest in them. The Frontiers Twitter takeover is the most glaring example, in my opinion. Like when Shadow admitted to being a Swiftie. the Sonic social media team opened up a whole can of worms with that. Admittedly, I do have a PowerPoint of all the Taylor Swift lyrics that describe Sonadow. I made it in 2021. That's right, I predicted this. Yeah, I was ahead of my time. But with the growing controversies surrounding Taylor Swift these past couple of years, I think this has aged really poorly, and this is coming from a fan. Well, I guess a jaded fan. Same can especially be said for Knuckles liking Lizzo with the allegations that came out last year. A lesson that you should stay in your lane and not go with what's popular at the moment because it could definitely backfire years down the line. This lesson applies to me as well, considering how much I've referenced Taylor Swift in my work. But aw, Sonic and Shadow care about each other. Aw, they're so cute when they're so competitive. Aw, Shadow loves lavender and has a 27-step skincare routine. Aw, Sonic sounds jealous that Shadow agreed to marry some random fan. Yes, that actually happens. Back on topic, in the aforementioned Sonic Forces Twitter takeover, Sonadow gets acknowledged by the Sonic social media team for the very first time. Back then, it felt like a pretty huge deal because Sonadow had never officially been recognized by anyone at Sega. This was when the Sonic social media team was trying to be all meta, self-aware, and self-deprecating. It was really annoying. But I remember exactly where I was when I heard a file called Sonadow for the first time. It was my last semester of college and I was in my dorm room. I was so surprised. But then they had to make it worse by having Shadow say that he doesn't like Sonadow.
Shadow, what do you think about Sonadow?
One word, Cassidy. No.
Of course, nobody at Sega has to like Sonadow, that's fine. And I get that this was supposed to be tongue-in-cheek, but I don't think they realized the homophobic ramifications by doing that. And yes, while there are straight women that ship them together, I don't think they realize that a lot of queer people support this pairing, and artists who have made Sonadow artwork have had to face harassment and death threats from homophobes. I mean, you'd be surprised. Homophobes in this fandom will latch onto anything if it suits their narrative, and this gave them additional fuel to harass Sonadow artists. If you think I'm making too big of a deal with this, let me explain. I became invested in the Sonadow fandom in late 2011, early 2012. I've seen artists come and go. I know that's a common thing and happens in every fandom, but when a Sonadow artist disappears without a word, I can't help but wonder if they left because of harassment or something worse. I really hope that isn't the case, but I know a few that have left for those reasons, and it is really unfortunate. You can say that it's the internet and people need to grow a thick skin, but a lot of us are not equipped to deal with constant harassment. Look at the IDW staff and how vocal they've been about the hate they received and how it's affected them. If you think you can handle being harassed by countless people, receiving death threats, having your boundaries crossed by strangers on the internet, maybe even getting doxxed, then good for you. You're so special. The Sonic Forces Twitter takeover was several years ago, so I don't know if the replies are all still there, but I remember seeing quite a few homophobic comments in that post at the time. But all of that aside, I think it's just also in poor taste. Imagine if Shadow said that about another ship like Shadami or Shadouge. It would probably upset those fans, especially when the Sonic social media team kept pushing the narrative that everything is canon. Regardless if they were joking, people actually believed that. Most gay ships in the 2000s and 2010s were viewed as jokes by many fandoms and had this reputation that only straight women shipped those pairings. But gay people did exist in the 2000s and liked gay pairings. But alas, we will never know what was in that file. Infinite ships Sonadow. Continuing on from a file called Sonadow, the Sonic fanbase jokes that Infinite canonically ships Sonadow because he basically told on himself when he sent Eggman that file. He either spent time looking at Sonadow fan art, or he was secretly stalking Sonic and Shadow and was taking pictures of them doing romantic couple things together. But Infinite, can I ask you a question? What is Eggman supposed to do with this information? What, does he try to kidnap one of them? Shadow isn't going down without a fight, and the same could be said for Sonic. I suppose it's to embarrass them, but it's not really that big of a deal. Okay, I guess it is kind of a big deal, but this wouldn't be on the level of Taylor Swift and Beyonce getting married, you know? But I hate to be the Debbie Downer here, but this does contradict canon because Infinite disappears at the end of Sonic Forces, so how is he supposed to send that file? But I suppose that won't stop people from believing whatever they want to believe, so nothing matters. Moving on. Sonic Boom Suggestive Sonadow Image. As you probably know, Sonic Boom, the TV show, widely catered to Sonamy fans. Additionally, Shadow the Hedgehog only appeared in 2 episodes, so there wasn't much for the Sonadow fans to enjoy. However, there is one brief moment between Sonic and Shadow that, out of context, it looks like they are about to get it on. This happens in the last episode of Sonic Boom when they're fighting. Sonic pins Shadow down and asks him why he's even picking a fight to begin with. This show is notorious for having suggestive, out-of-context moments, this one being no exception, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. Sonic x Shadow Generations. Oh boy. On January 31st, 2024, Sega uploaded the first trailer for Sonic and Shadow Generations, a remaster of Sonic Generations featuring a brand new storyline and gameplay for Shadow the Hedgehog. The internet ran with the title and started making a ton of fan art with Sonic and Shadow kissing, or memes of Sega trying to protect people from searching Sonic x Shadow. I have to say, genius move on Sega's part, because Sonadow fans are doing all of this free marketing for them and further increasing their social media engagement. Sales are already through the roof. At the time of making this video, we don't have any details on Shadow's side of the story. We don't know how this will affect the original Sonic Generations and the timeline as we know it. We at least know that we're getting Kingdom Valley. Huge win for the gays. Oh, and Shadow has wings. And of course, Black Doom and Maria will be in the game, and Stephanie Say, who you may recognize as the voice of Xena from Sonic Lost World, will be voicing Maria. Sonic and Shadow Generations is set to be released on October 25th, 2024. If you're from the future, let me know if the boys kissed. Now that we've gotten through the basics, I feel like I should clarify one thing before we dive any deeper. I mentioned earlier that I want to make this video an informative experience. With that said, there's been a lot of discourse of Sonic canon and characterizations and how it's all messed up. I'm not here to argue what is truly canon and what is the appropriate characterization. If it's a Sonadow-related thing tied to the games, shows, comics, and other official Sonic media, then it's on the iceberg. I'll add my opinion as I see fit, but remember that it's just my opinion. The Sonic social media team started the Everything is Canon movement, so take it up with them. You know what? Believe whatever you want to believe. Sonamy fans do it all the time, and they are just living their best life. Alright, let's move on. Sonic kissing Shadow GIF.
It's pronounced GIF.
There's this GIF of Sonic kissing Shadow, and it's really tender and heartfelt, so sweet and wholesome. If you are on Sonic Twitter, there's a good chance that you've seen it, as it's become quite popular even outside of the Sonadow community. People use it jokingly, but it is funny to see it used outside of the Sonadow fanbase. This GIF was created by MyLife14 on DeviantArt in November 2015. I don't know if she's on other platforms or if she goes by a different name. I tried looking her up on social media, but couldn't find anything, so if you happen to know, please leave a comment. Sega staff liking Sonadow art. Basically, a few Sonic voice actors, Sonic team employees, etc. have publicly liked and retweeted Sonadow art on Twitter. The most notable instance is Roger Craig Smith liked this beautiful artwork by Ram in late 2021. Ian Hanlon, the voice of Shadow from Sonic Prime, has also liked quite a few Sonadow-related artwork. Kazuyuki Hoshino, the creative director for Sonic and one of the original Sonic team members, straight up retweeted Sonadow art. I also recently learned that the Sega of Korea social media account has liked a fair share of Sonadow art. Unfortunately, I learned this after Twitter made likes private. I was genuinely curious to see if they liked other Sonic ship fan art. I imagine they have. In any other fan base, this wouldn't be a big deal, but because homophobic Sonic fans have such a hate boner for Sonadow, it means a lot to the Sonadow fan base. It goes against the narrative that homophobes have pushed for years, that people associated with Sega hate Sonadow fans and that we're ruining the franchise. Where is Shadow's arm? In Season 3, Episode 5 of Sonic Prime, there is a moment where Sonic introduces Shadow to the team, and he's putting his arm around Shadow, getting very close to him, while Shadow is just standing there awkwardly. But when you take a good look at the side hug, you'll notice that Shadow's right arm is not visibly seen. This made Sonadow fans speculate where Shadow placed his right hand. Hi Eon, a phenomenal artist, made artwork of this moment and showed that Shadow is grabbing one of Sonic's quills. I think that's definitely the most plausible scenario, but I guess Shadow isn't pulling that hard because Sonic doesn't seem to flinch. That, or Sonic has such a high pain tolerance that it doesn't faze him. Shadow's right hand could potentially be behind Sonic's back, but I feel like you would at least see part of his hand because they're both so skinny and their hands are so big. One of the Sonic Prime animators semi-confirmed our speculations and even drew both scenarios, which is greatly appreciated. In the next frame, you can see Shadow's right arm next to Sonic's body, but Sonic still has his arm around him. My favorite part of all of this is how Shadow doesn't brush Sonic's arm off, even after going into defense mode. Maybe a part of him secretly enjoys having Sonic's arm around him. Shadonic. It's just another name for the ship, not to be confused with Shattuck, which is this strange amalgamation of Sonic and Shadow. I don't know how that was conceived, but apparently it is a thing in the Sonic fandom. Shadonic isn't as commonly used as Sonadow, but I think it's mainly used by fans who headcanon that Shadow is the top, the dominant one in the relationship. And, you know, to each their own, but Shadow is clearly a bottom. Look at him, only a bottom would make that face. Tails Tube Episode 7. Tails Tube is a web series that I believe was kickstarted by a few members of the Sonic social media team in March 2022. If you haven't watched one, think Twitter takeovers, but a little more in character and more focused on canon and timeline history. However, it is worth mentioning that there are some contradictions throughout the series, Episode 7 being no exception. So Tails brings on Sonic and Shadow to talk out their differences, and they bicker back and forth. So the reason why it's landed a spot on the iceberg is because of this brief moment here.
From the moment we met, we've been at odds. We're polar opposites.
I don't know. I think my magnetic personality is quite attractive.
And yet when you're near me, I feel repulsed.
But they say opposites attract. And you guys have put aside your differences and saved the world.
To be honest with you, I don't see this episode as like one big Sonadow moment. And yes, I am a Sonadow fan. The way they act towards each other in this episode is how the general fandom perceives their relationship. Which is unfortunate because their dynamic is a lot more nuanced and compelling in the mainline Sonic games. There's a push and pull dynamic and an air of mystery to their relationship, and that is part of the reason why so many fans are fascinated by their rivalry. I wouldn't say that they're opposites. I think Sonic and Shadow are two sides of the same coin. In the Japanese version of Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow says, "It seems your appearance isn't the only thing that's similar to me." One thing I think is inaccurate is when Tails says, "You two have fought more often than not." But Sonic and Shadow don't fight that much in the games. In fact, they actually work together more than they fight each other. This isn't just limited to the games. It's like this for the IDW comics, the Sonic Channel stories, Sonic Prime, etc. The only time where I'd agree that they fight more than work together is in Sonic Boom, but we don't really see that much of Shadow and Boom either. In the story-based games, they only fought once in Heroes. They technically didn't fight in Shadow the Hedgehog, although I do like to headcanon that the pure hero Sonic fight did happen. Sonic and Shadow only fight one time in Sonic Battle Story, they don't fight at all in Sonic 06, in Sonic Rivals they race each other instead of fight, and they help each other out in the end. But they do squabble in Sonic Rivals 2. Before the re-release, there's only one battle in Sonic Generations, and no boss fight in Sonic Forces. I know this is more of a spin-off, but in Team Sonic Racing, they're just super competitive. But they don't fight. So if I'm including my headcanon and the Rivals 1 race, that's only 6 boss fights after Sonic Adventure 2. Maybe 7 if you count Sonic and the Black Knight, but that's not really Shadow. I don't know. But for every time they fight, there's always 1 to 2 moments where they help each other. And this doesn't include games where they are on the same side from the start. While I've enjoyed watching a few of their battles, I don't look at their fights and think, oh wow, they're flirting. If you feel that way, great. Scream it from the rooftops, baby. But as someone who enjoys this ship, I'm far more interested in how they collaborate and share brief, tender moments where they understand one another. They have a unique bond with each other that they don't share with anyone else. In my opinion, it's disappointing that this Tales tube portrays them like they can't have a normal conversation with each other. It feels like incessant bickering, and I find it reductive, honestly. It has yet to be confirmed who wrote Episode 7, but if you're going to make a series that's supposed to help people learn the lore, characters, and relationships, I would expect it to be, accurate. That is not an unreasonable request. The other piece that fans fixated on is the brief Sonic Prime clip in the background, implicitly confirming that it's canon to the main timeline, I suppose. This had a lot of fans feeling a certain way, both Sonadow shippers and non-shippers alike, given how different Sonic's characterization is in that show. It's sort of ironic that Tales Tube was meant to tighten up the lore when it kind of made things more confusing. Bahama Bucks Sonic and Shadow promo. With 2024 being the year of Shadow, Sega made quite a few brand deals with various companies, one of them being Bahama Bucks. Not to be confused with Bahama Mama. On May 3rd, 2024, Bahama Bucks launched their exclusive Sonic and Shadow shaved ice, while supplies last. Bahama Bucks also featured collector's cups and pics of Sonic and Shadow looking cute, posing and holding their shaved ice. One of the popular Sonadow subgenres is Sonic and Shadow getting ice cream or dessert together. This might be the closest we'll get to official artwork of Sonic and Shadow on a dessert date. Congrats, Sonadow fans, you manifested this. The Princess Carry. Those who have watched all of Sonic Prime know that Sonic and Shadow have carried each other bridal style at some point in the show. On Twitter, it's confirmed that the animators refer to this position as the Princess Carry, which is pretty cute. It's not just limited to Sonadow, Sonic has also princess carried Captain Dread twice in Season 1, Episode 8. Everybody tries to be straight. In Shadow's theme, Throw It All Away, there is a lyric that fans tend to fixate on, mostly as a joke. Everybody tries to be straight, but things are still unchanged. It's useless to resist. To be fair, I'm pretty sure they mean being straight with the law. Going down the path of the straight and arrow type of thing. But yeah, I do agree that it is useless resisting the gayness. Team Sonic Racing, Overdrive, flirting. Oh my god. So, in the Team Sonic Racing Overdrive animation, there is a brief moment between Sonic and Shadow that is a bit on the flirtatious side. At least on Sonic's part. Sonic and Shadow are leading the race and they're neck and neck with each other. Sonic speeds up in front of Shadow and turns his car around like a full 180, and then he quickly puts it in reverse. He then looks at Shadow and gives him a cheeky smirk. it's a bit flirtatious. It looks like he's checking him out. Shadow is understandably mad because that is so irresponsible. Why would anyone do this? That is so unsafe. What are you teaching the children, Sonic? If you're skeptical about this and you think, I don't really see it, Sonic is just teasing Shadow, think of it this way. Replace Shadow with Amy. Sonic speeds up in front of her, pulls the exact same stunt, and gives her the exact same look. That would probably look like flirting to many straight people. I'm positive that Son-Amy fans would see that as Sonic flirting and trying to check her out, and would understandably be excited about it. But do not do this with your crush, ever. You're going to kill them. Sonadow Heart. One thing that quite a few fans point out is when Sonic and Shadow do that thing where they jump high in the sky and they pass by each other and make a dramatic pose, they make the shape of a heart. So cute. Sega Cherry Blossom and Hydrangea post. On March 15th, 2024, Sega of Japan posted a picture of a Shadow plushie in front of some cherry blossom trees, with the caption, "Enjoying the beautiful cherry blossoms in Tokyo." If you look closely, Sonic is there at the bottom corner of the picture. Sega West quote tweeted that and shared a picture of Sonic enjoying the cherry blossom trees in London. And again, if you look closely, you'll see Shadow in the corner of the picture. Their Instagram post has an additional picture of Sonic looking back at Shadow. I mean, come on. They knew what they were doing. People typically associate cherry blossoms with romance. It's a symbol of love and where you take your engagement photos. It's also worth mentioning that cherry blossom art is a prominent subgenre of Sonadow artwork. If it were Amy, I'm sure a lot of fans would say that Sonic and Amy are on a date. Well, well, well. 88 days later, and Sega PR posts another Sonic and Shadow flower outing. You can't make this stuff up. On June 11th, Pride Month 2024, Sega of Japan posted a picture of a Sonic plush in front of hydrangeas with Shadow hanging out in the back. The caption reads, "Sonic posing with the beautiful hydrangeas in Tokyo." Can you spot someone in the background? I love how they're pushing us to notice that Shadow is there too. They also added a secret picture on Instagram of them gazing into each other's eyes. So then, Sega West quote tweeted with their picture of Shadow in front of pink hydrangeas and Sonic poking around in the back, checking out the beautiful hydrangeas in London with Shadow. If you want to get into hydrangea symbolism, apparently each color has a different meaning. Pink hydrangeas symbolize romance and true feelings, while white symbolizes purity and grace. If you don't really believe in that stuff, that's totally fine, but it's just another little thing to consider, especially with the cherry blossom post in March. There's no denying it. This was clearly planned, and they know exactly what they're doing, especially given the fandom's response to the cherry blossom post. Here's another interesting thing to think about. One of the reoccurring criticisms that Sega gets is that their Western and Japanese teams don't really communicate or collaborate well with each other. But of all things that they plan together, it's this. I know it's PR, so it's not the same as game development, but still, Sega Japan sort of operates on its own. And it seems like the Western teams don't really have visibility of Sonic Channel and the monthly artwork and stories they post. Hopefully we get more of these wholesome collaborations. I'm excited to see Sonic and Shadow at a rose garden. Shadow, you're gay. This is an edit of what I believe is from the Archie Sonic and Mega Man crossover, correct me if I'm wrong, where Sonic says, "Shadow, you're gay," and Shadow responds with, why wouldn't I be? This edit pops up a lot in gay Sonic/Sonadow Twitter. In the original version, Sonic says, "Shadow, you're okay," which, you know, it's sweet that Sonic is happy that Shadow is safe. Year of Shadow promo, Sonic and Shadow road trip. On April 9th, Sega declared 2024 as the Year of Shadow by releasing this really cute video promo of this girl who has Shadow as her comfort character. One moment that garnered a lot of attention by Sonadow fans are the Sonic and Shadow doodles shown on the roadmap. Coffee and food, Sonic approved. It's super cute. Many commenters joked about how it looked like Sonic and Shadow were going on a road trip together. In addition to the promo video, official artwork of Sonic and Shadow was released for the Year of Shadow. It's the two of them in the air, and of course, the focus is on Shadow, with it being the Year of Shadow. Sonic is smiling, and if you look closely, it looks like Shadow is trying not to smile, but failing at it. How cute. But it also raised the question, if this is the Year of Shadow, then why is Sonic tagging along with him? Sonic sure does seem to be quite involved in the Year of Shadow. Where's Rouge and Omega, huh? This isn't specifically on the iceberg, but I'm sure someone will bring it up. Other promotions include the Shadow the Hedgehog motorcycle for the MotoGP Tour. Additionally, there are pictures of the Sonic mascot there. One specific picture that's circulated amongst Sonadow fans is mascot Sonic on top of Shadow's motorcycle. Ooh, romantic. Speaking of motorcycles, Sonadow fans, might I recommend watching Lady Gaga's performance of Heavy Metal Lover at her Born This Way Ball tour. I think you'll enjoy it, just trust me. Also, yes, I did see the Sonadow golf cart as well, in case you were about to ask. Tumblr ranking. At the end of each year, Tumblr releases their top 100 ships by popularity, and Sonadow is the only Sonic ship that has made that list within the past 2 years. In 2022, Sonadow ranked at number 69, nice. In 2023, Sonadow jumped up several spots and made it to number 46. Will they jump to a higher spot in 2024? I guess we'll learn in a few months from now. Or maybe you're watching this from the future and you already know. Let me know in the comments, and be sure to tell me what you thought about Sonadow Generations and the Sonadow 3 movie. Google search ranking. It may also interest you to know that at the time of this recording, Sonadow is the most Googled Sonic ship according to Google search trends. Keep in mind, when it comes to tracking overall engagement interest, Google Trends alone is not going to give you the most precise answer. You'll also want to look at metrics from other social media platforms. And while Sonadow is more popular on platforms like TikTok and Tumblr, Sunamy is the most popular Sonic ship on Instagram and Twitter. Most of you probably don't care about this stuff, but I find it interesting. I think the numbers tell us a story and how the Sonic fandom has changed over time. Google Trends at least gives an idea of how much people go out of their way to search for Sonadow, but let's walk through the graphs and see the history. I'll be switching back and forth from web search and image search, as there are differences in both categories. From the beginning, Sonamy was predominantly the most searched for Sonic ship. For web search trends, you can go as early as 2004. For image searches, it's 2008. I don't know how reliable the data collection was in the 2000s, but occasionally you'll see brief moments where search interest in Sonadow was slightly higher than Sonamy. When you look at the timing, it makes sense. Shadow the Hedgehog came out in November 2005, so we see a slight uptick in Sonadow the next month. When Sonic 06 came out, it appears that Sonamy and Sonadow were tied in search interest. But again, I don't know how reliable this is. Sonamy was at its peak popularity around 2014 to 2015, which makes sense because that was when Sonic Boom, the TV show, came out. While interest decreased over time, Sonamy was still the most searched for Sonic ship up until late 2021 to early 2022. I'm trying to remember what happened around that time. Of course, the Sonic and Shadow story came out in 2021, but that was in July. The Sonic Colors Ultimate Twitter takeover had a little bit of Sonadow fan service, but since the release of Sonic IDW's issue 35, which happened in December 2020, we begin to see the Sonadow search interest catch up to Sonamy in both web and image searches. By the time Sonic Prime came out, you see a larger gap in interest between the two ships. You could also see that searches for Sonadow images increased around July 2023. That makes sense because Sonic Prime Season 2 released during that time. I will say, the fact that people are going out of their way to search for this more than Sonamy speaks volumes. Turns out, Sega doesn't need to protect their fans because you all are searching for Sonadow anyway. Sonic social media emoji post. On September 1st, 2023, the Sonic social media posted this Guess the Sonic Games challenge. There were 8 different Sonic games, and each one showed a list of emojis to help you guess what Sonic game they're referring to. Number 4 is Sonic Adventure 2, and the reason why it's on the iceberg is that one of the emojis they used was the 2 men holding hands. I guess that symbolizes Sonic and Shadow's team up. Sonadow fans caught on to that and were like, what do you mean? What do you mean with the holding of hands? Is Sonic Shadow gay? It's true they could have probably used better emojis to symbolize the team up, but also it's not that big of a deal. Screw you, Dad, I'm gay. This is a reference to a post made by Vladim3D. They recreated a few iconic moments from Shadow the Hedgehog with updated models of Sonic and Shadow. The one that's received the most popularity is this screenshot of Sonic and Shadow holding hands while confronting Black Doom, and Shadow says, "Screw you, Dad, I'm gay." Okay, but these other ones are great too. I love the, "Woohoo, let's get homosexual." Thank you, Vladim, for making this beautiful masterpiece. It's important to note that they credited Isersibra4, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, HERS700, SpeedyX, and Shadowith117 for providing those models, so be sure to check them out as well. Nearly 3 years later, life decided to imitate art. As Vladim was playing Shadow the Hedgehog, the game sort of bugged out and made it look like Sonic and Shadow were holding hands. They even got them to kiss. How wonderful is that? Sonic and Shadow, Space Gadget Cutscene, and Mission. In the game Shadow the Hedgehog, one of the semi-hero to pure hero stages is called Space Gadget. Before you play the stage, there's a brief moment between Sonic and Shadow that really sticks out to Sonadow fans. So Shadow accompanies Sonic to the Space Colony Ark, and he suddenly remembers fighting the Bio-Lizard with Sonic and then falling to his death. Sonic then comes in and he's like, "Yeah, let's party." And then he turns to Shadow and is like, "Yeah, you down to clown?" Sorry, he says, "You up for this, Shadow?" And then they gaze into each other's eyes for a couple seconds before Sonic runs off. There's quite a bit to analyze with this interaction. First of all, the closeness. Sonic gets close enough to where Shadow can smell his nasty chili dog breath and speaks to him in a softer tone. Both maintain eye contact with each other before Sonic runs off. And if you really focus on Shadow, you'll notice that he slightly leans his head towards Sonic. Now, Shadow is someone who prefers to keep others at a distance, both physically and emotionally. So to see him be in such close proximity to Sonic is quite interesting. You might feel that I'm reading too deep into this, but their movements were intentional. Subtle movements still take time and effort to animate. Shadow slowly tilting his head towards Sonic was done on purpose. I think this cutscene is meant to establish Shadow's next mission with Sonic, and how he's sort of following his lead, or at least sticking with him in order to find the answers he's looking for. Anyway, I think it's a really cute cutscene, and I'm glad it's there. That's the first half. Now let's cover the mission itself. The objective is to race Sonic and beat him to the Chaos Emerald. This is my favorite mission in the game. Sonic and Shadow are running along the Space Colony Ark, and Sonic is trying to help Shadow recover his memories. One of the lines he says is, "It's been a long time since the two of us ran along here together." Makes it seem like they're on a romantic jog. I think it's really sweet that Sonic is trying to help Shadow while the two are racing towards the Chaos Emerald. When you beat the level, Shadow says this.
"Sonic, now I remember. That day, we fought here aboard the Ark."
Oh, he sounds so happy. It's really cute. Lansani Arthurlot. This is a Sonadow subgenre based on the game Sonic and the Black Knight. It's Sonic as the true King Arthur and Shadow as Sir Lancelot. While it's somewhat niche within the fandom, it's gained quite a bit of traction these past few years, especially with Sonic and the Black Knight gaining resurgence in the Sonic fandom as a whole. While we're on the topic of Sonadow subgenres, some other popular ones include Werehog Sonic and Shadow, Pirate Sonadow, of course. One of my favorites, and the most established one, is Super Sonadow, or Super Sonic and Shadow and vice versa. The OG Sonadow artist started that subgenre way back in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I love it so much, and it's great that it's still an ongoing thing in the fandom today. And of course, most recently, Jester Sonic and King Shadow. Sonadow Coloring Book. On March 19th, 2024, Sonic Fraxteals, an account that shares Sonic merch updates on Twitter, shared that an official Sonic and Shadow coloring book is in the works for the Year of Shadow. They added hashtag Sonadow to the post, catching the attention of fans, and that's why so many have dubbed this the Sonadow Coloring Book. At the time of this recording, we have yet to know what is in the coloring book, but we'll find out by December 17th, 2024. Heart and Soul. In Shadow's chapter of Sonic Battle, he and Sonic have an honest and personal conversation at Emerald Beach. Shadow warns that Emerald's awakening as a war machine is quickly approaching, and that if he obtains all 7 Chaos Emeralds, he will have the power to destroy the world. But Sonic insists to Shadow that he and Emerald have hearts, despite being created as weapons of war. If you have a heart, you would never use your power for the forces of evil. There's no way you could. Weapons aren't supposed to have hearts, but both you and Emerald do. You guys, you aren't just weapons. This is hands down my favorite moment between Sonic and Shadow. This is when I realized that these two are more than just your stereotypical rivals, and that they share a deeper connection. Sonic tells Shadow that he truly believes that Shadow has a heart. Sonic is genuinely trying to connect with him and trying to help Shadow out of his nihilist way of thinking. And despite Shadow attempting to destroy Emerald in the beginning of the game, Sonic doesn't let that skew his opinion of Shadow. It's a shame that Sonic Battle is text only, because I would have loved to see this moment animated and with voiceovers. I also think that this is something that Shadow needed to hear at the moment, especially after saying that he believes he should be destroyed, a line that's carried over from the semi-hero ending of Shadow the Hedgehog. Sonic can see past Shadow's words and read his character based on his actions, and while Shadow initially denies Sonic's beliefs, it does seem like his words resonated with Shadow when he asked Eggman's supercomputer why he and Emerald were programmed with a heart and soul. It's also worth noting that Heart and Soul is repeated by Shadow in both the English and Japanese versions of Sonic Forces. I think it's a nice touch, and it's a subtle way to show that Sonic's words still have an impact on Shadow. The Sonic and Shadow July 2021 story. Ah yes, the original Sonic x Shadow. In 2021, Sonic Channel, Sega of Japan / Sonic Team's website, posted monthly stories of Sonic going on an adventure with other characters. They're really great, by the way. You should give them a read. I've linked a couple of websites where you can read the translated versions. It is so unfortunate that many Sonic fans don't know about these stories, so of course we're going to cover this one in detail. Sonic decided to visit Mission Street, as it is the perfect spot to view a rare celestial event. He then notices Shadow fighting a couple of beetle drones in a back alley. Suspicious of Shadow's motives, Sonic catches up to him to see what's going on. He teasingly asks Shadow if he's having fun, but Shadow tells him that it isn't his business and to not get in his way. If he answers carelessly, Shadow will disappear into the darkness in an instant. But Sonic isn't about to lag behind. A high-speed chase ensues through the front and back of Mission Street. From wall running, to jumping across building roofs, to fighting in the air while crossing at high speed in a tunnel. A little while later, Shadow's axe kick, delivered at a frightening speed, flashed and Sonic caught it with both arms. Oh wow. We always recognize Sonic for his speed, but he's also a very skilled fighter. Annoyed by Sonic's persistence, Shadow jumps back and asks him why he keeps following him. Sonic cheekily responds with, "I don't want to be blamed for your misdeeds again." Shadow quips that Sonic is being self-conscious and pulls out his Chaos Emerald. Knowing what was about to happen next, Sonic calls out trying to stop him, but it's already too late. Shadow uses Chaos Control and disappears. As expected of Shadow, he was able to do this with the Chaos Emerald, which has used up all of its power in the previous battle, and was not at its best. Sonic, left alone, could only look up at the night sky. Shadow. But Sonic got a hunch to where Shadow was headed. Behind the main street, Shadow noiselessly broke into an unnaturally large bank building. The wreckage of a newly busted beetle laid at his feet. As he heads towards the central vault, he sees Sonic standing at the door with a grin on his face while holding a keycard. He used the energy detector he borrowed from Tails to track Shadow down. Noticing that the break didn't set off any alarms, Sonic knew something fishy was going on. I really like this next part. Shadow was about to ask, "So, what do you need in exchange for that key card?" And then he stops himself and says, "No, that's a foolish question. You just find this situation intriguing and want the full picture." I don't know what it is, I just think it's cute. Realizing that Sonic won't leave him alone, Shadow explains he got a report that this building posed as a bank, but in reality is a factory developing weapons, and that a hidden capsule is a time bomb that's set to explode at midnight. Sonic was taken aback by Shadow's explanation, but before he could respond, Tails' energy detector went off. Sonic smiled at Shadow and slid the keycard and unlocked the door. A large group of researchers were trapped in there and frantically rushed out of the building and warned them that a bomb was about to explode. That's really scary. Imagine being trapped in a factory and a bomb is about to go off and you have no means to escape. Sonic and Shadow quickly destroyed the guard beetles and head towards the explosive. Shadow uses Chaos Control to transport the bomb high in the sky and the city is saved. While Sonic is entertained by the explosion, Shadow is frustrated because he actually wanted to launch the bomb into space, but the defective Chaos Emerald was only able to take it so far. He gives the Chaos Emerald to Sonic and tells him, "I don't need anything less than a fake. If I give it to someone good-natured like you, you'll resurrect it or something, won't you?" Aw, that's sweet. After the mission, Sonic continues to follow Shadow and wonders how he became the guy that secretly worked for everyone's peace. This is important. Shadow tells Sonic, "I'm not interested in peace. I don't care what happens to others. I just can't stand it when foolish beings do whatever they please on this planet, whether it's the Doctor or anyone else, including you. Don't get the wrong idea." Sorry. While Shadow has a disdain towards humanity, understandably so, he still wants to protect the planet. He doesn't want to witness another atrocity happen like he has in the past, and if he can stop it, he will. A few seconds of silence followed. Shadow is pouting, and Sonic is still grinning. He points out that a lot of people would like to thank Shadow for what he did today. Shadow stops in his tracks and is about to tell Sonic to shut up, but then he pauses. The two share a brief, delicate, almost tender moment in the moonlight. This is the best part of the story, and summarizing it will not do it justice. There, with the distant lights of the city in the background, Sonic stood with his right arm outstretched, pointing toward the night sky, while looking toward Shadow, and the full moon shining brightly where he pointed. They could also see the space colony Ark floating just above it, looking down at them. In the midst of the transcendental scene, Shadow couldn't help but gasp at the sight of the Ark, which looked almost divine in the moonlight from below. The Ark of hope and mistakes. This is the place where Shadow was once born, where he gained and lost so much of his precious things in time. A ruin floating in the vacuum, where too many things were given up to protect this planet. Once a year, due to the orbital alignment of the satellites, there is a night when the Ark can be seen directly above the full moon. Mission Street was one of the best places to see it, and the celestial show of two cold, dignified moons floating in a sea of warm city lights was Sonic's favorite. Shadow looks up at the Ark in silence. No one knows how much memory and truth is left in his heart about what happened in the past, or what he's thinking now. But this silence seemed to be the answer to Sonic. As if in response, Sonic slowly lowered his hand. As Shadow followed this meaningful movement with his eyes, Sonic pointed his hand directly at his own face and smirked. Ridiculous! As he snapped, Shadow straddled a motorcycle that was placed behind a thicket on the side of the road. It's a big military motorcycle. It must have been prepared there in advance. The engine roared as if to reject Sonic's attempts to say something. The second one's redundant. He drives off at full throttle. Sonic, seeing him off, without chasing him, had his usual grin on his face. But he also looked somewhat disappointed. Mission Street, a trendy place for business and shopping. With the full moon in the starry sky, there was a shadow that was drifting away from the warmly lit, peaceful city, as if it were being ostracized. It was so small that no one paid it any attention. Only the moon, overlooking the bustling streets of this city, seemed to watch over that shadow forever and ever. I won't spend a lot of time breaking down certain details as they will be discussed deeper in the iceberg, but I'd like to talk about how the story aligns with the Tanabata Festival. Tanabata, otherwise known as the Star Festival, takes place on the 7th day of the 7th month. It celebrates the reunion of two star-crossed lovers who are separated by the Milky Way and can only meet once a year. Once a year, the Space Colony Ark can be seen directly above the full moon, and the best place to view this occurrence is on Mission Street, a bustling area for shopping and celebrations. The celestial show of these two cold, dignified moons floating in a sea of warm city lights was Sonic's favorite. And of course, Sonic and Shadow's calendar story was for the month of July. And just so you know that I'm not making this up, on the first day of Tanabata in 2024, Sega of Japan posted these Tanabata banners, and you can see Sonic and Shadow on the left. The caption says, "Today is Tanabata. What wish would you like to make?" It's also worth noting that the story was posted on June 28th, the anniversary of Stonewall. For those who do not know about the Stonewall Uprising, on June 28, 1969, a police raid took place at the Stonewall Inn, a gay bar that was a safe space for the LGBT community. At that point in time, police raids occurred frequently at LGBT-friendly establishments. In short, the patrons fought back with the police, and this rebellion was named the Stonewall Riots and served as a catalyst for the gay rights movement in America. June 28th officially became Gay Pride Day in 1970, and eventually in the 90s, the month of June became Pride Month. If you want to argue that Sega of Japan probably wasn't aware of that, and they typically post their stories later in the month, that is completely fair. I would not expect them to know about American history. However, with the Tanabata symbolism and the writer's notes, which we'll cover next, combined with posting on the Stonewall anniversary, I can't help but be intrigued by that. If it is the case that this is some wild coincidence, then that is a very fascinating fluke. Regardless if this was intentional or not, I choose to think of this as symbolic. Sonic encompasses being yourself and fighting for your rights and freedom. And that is what these brave people had to do in order to protect their right to exist. I think for this beautiful story to be shared on the Stonewall anniversary is very touching. It makes it more special to me, so thank you, Mr. Toyota, for this amazing story. A rare, up-close, and personal relationship. In the writer's notes of the Sonic and Shadow story, Toyota describes their bond to be a rare, up-close, and personal relationship. Now, what is Sonic to Shadow and Shadow to Sonic? If there is one thing that can be said about them, it's that they're the rare ones who can curry favor to each other. In fact, perhaps Sonic is the only person who can get so up close and personal with Shadow and say something to him that reaches his heart, though it often doesn't. In a sense, his kind of presence is troublesome, but it's also one of the most important ones. Regardless of how you feel about the ship, I think it's really telling that, of all characters, Sonic is the one person that is the most effective at reaching Shadow, even though it doesn't happen much. And you consistently see this in the games, IDW comics, and TV shows. Shadow often puts up a front, but every once in a while, Sonic manages to reach him. English versus Japanese script comparisons. Analyzing the Japanese dialogue in Sonic media is something that the Sonadow community partakes in. Why is that? The answer may vary by fan, but I believe most would agree that the Japanese version gives you a stronger understanding of Sonic Team's vision and how they intended to portray the characters. When it comes to dialogue translations, misunderstandings of the text happen. There's also localization to appeal to that region's audience. But even in the early 2000s, there were moments in the games that Sega West missed the mark on. Without question, Shadow is the character that is the most misunderstood, the one who suffers the most with localization. Sega Japan wrote the scripts for Sonic Adventure all the way to Sonic Freeriders, and Sega West would translate the dialogue and make localization changes for Western audiences. Sonic is a lot more cheeky and brash in the English version, and while Sonic in the Japanese version still has those characteristics, it's not as in-your-face as his Western portrayal. Before Ken Pontac and Warren Graff joined, the dialogue was mostly similar between the two scripts. But the English scripts suffered with awkward translations every now and then. And of course, the localization did impair Sonic Team's original vision. Shadow the Hedgehog, the game, is probably the worst it gets when it comes to misunderstood translations and poor localization. It also didn't help that men in their 20s and 30s mistook trauma for edginess. But to give the English version credit, there are certain moments where I enjoy the English cutscenes more than the original. In my opinion, Eggman's manipulation in the English script left more of a lasting impact than the Japanese version. At the same time, I also prefer the Japanese version for the Sonic and Shadow specific cutscenes. You begin to see stark differences in characterization when you look at Sonic Freeriders and Forward, basically when the new Sonic voice cast came in. While the Japanese version doesn't fix the core issues people have with stories like Lost World and Forces, it definitely improves the viewing experience. Like, Sonic and Tails are actually likable in the Japanese dub of Sonic Lost World. Keep in mind, Pontac and Graff weren't involved in writing the English script of Sonic Freeriders, but Shadow was portrayed as uncaring and aggressive. However, in the Japanese version, he's far more well-mannered, just very competitive. I mean, anyone who watches anime knows that this is not just a Sonic thing. Many English dubs seem to exaggerate the negative traits of the rival character. One example I can think of off the top of my head is Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, because I've been rewatching it recently. I watched the first season of the anime religiously when I came home from elementary school, but as I revisited the show as an adult and watched the Japanese sub, I immediately noticed the difference in personality with Jaiden's rival, Chaz. In the English version, Chaz is an arrogant and stereotypical rich kid bully. He's still arrogant in the Japanese version, but acts sophisticated, refined, and far more polite, kind of like Shadow. Of course, this was dubbed by 4Kids, and they are notorious for changing many things for the sake of the children. I guess they changed Chaz's personality to make him more palatable to kids. But my point is, this isn't exclusive to Sonic. People who are sorely missing the 2000s characterization, I highly recommend watching videos with the Japanese translations and checking out the Sonic Channel stories. Even if you don't like Sonadow, the characterization is consistent and has more substance to the dialogue in comparison to the English script for the past 10 to almost 15 years. Once again, you see more of that rare and up-close relationship that Sonic and Shadow share. But it's not just limited to video games. There are also dialogue differences in Sonic X and Sonic Prime. Notably in Prime, the Japanese dub adds a few grunts and gasps during key Sonadow moments. For example, when Sonic collapses to the floor after getting his prism energy drained out of him, you can slightly hear Shadow gasp. That's not in the English dub. I think it adds a very nice touch. Back to the Sonadow community, I am in awe at how passionate and detail-oriented fans are when it comes to analyzing moments between Sonic and Shadow in various media, and even in different languages, not just English and Japanese. I feel passionately about this. I don't think people realize how much Sonadow content creators have contributed to the Sonic fandom, and fans should be aware of that. It goes beyond fan art and fanfics. I'm talking about comprehensive character analyses, breaking down specific cutscenes in great detail, even translating the Japanese scripts, not just in the games, but in obscure media as well, or just raising awareness about it. Sonic Remix, one of the OG Sonadow content creators, is the reason why we have Sonic Revolution, one of the biggest Sonic conventions. It's a shame that all of those contributions and hard work gets overlooked because we like a harmless ship. I learned a lot about Sonic lore because of the Sonadow community. I wouldn't have known about Sonic Channel had it not been for the Sonadow community. I wouldn't have learned about the differences in characterization and storytelling between the Japanese and Western portrayals. Bumblecast Sonadow episode. To those who are unaware, the current head writer for the Sonic IDW comics and games, Ian Flynn, has a podcast called Bumblecast. Him and his co-host Kyle Kraus talk all things Sonic and answer questions from fans. In June 2023, they dedicated a whole episode talking about Sonadow for Pride Month. Ian discussed his view on the Sonadow dynamic. Again, completely goes against the narrative that people at Sega hate Sonadow fans and gay people. And at the time of this recording, it happens to be their most popular episode. I think it also shows how far the support and acceptance for this pairing has come along, especially from that Twitter takeover travesty from 2017. So yeah, I've linked the video in the description if you want to check it out. Shadow's disappearance in Sonic Forces. If you play Sonic Forces or watch the cutscenes, you know that Shadow is absent for a significant chunk of the game. In episode Shadow, Infinite traps Shadow in virtual reality, but he manages to break free. About a month later, Rouge informs Shadow that Eggman has attacked Sonic and that Shadow needs to hurry. He isn't there to save Sonic on time, and then he just disappears for 6 months. And that's a long time, that's half a year. And what's worse is that the Resistance and Sonic are under the impression that Shadow is partnering with Eggman. But of course, it turns out that Infinite made a fake Shadow with the Phantom Ruby. So what was he doing during that time? The game doesn't tell us, so people who care about this stuff have to fill in the blanks themselves. My guess is that he was searching for Sonic himself, or he was so distraught over Sonic's supposed death that he gave up until he got news that Sonic was actually alive all that time. But it still doesn't make sense. Like, did he tell Rouge? If he did, then why didn't she say anything to the Resistance? The poor story execution is to blame, but quite a few Sonadow fans can't help but wonder. Team Sonic Racing comic. To promote Team Sonic Racing, the Sonic IDW staff made an exclusive comic for the game. And they went pretty heavy on the fan service with this one. The cover shows Sonic giving a mischievous wink to Shadow. The comic story has a similar concept to the game. Basically, Sonic and friends are trying to figure out who this Dodonpaw guy is, but Sonic and Shadow also use this as an opportunity to compete with each other because rivalry. And believe me, that does not go unnoticed. Knuckles says, Sonic and Shadow are off in their own little world. The funniest part to me is that they're both competing with each other, but also trying to work together at the same time. Like this moment right here. You should focus on your opponent. Me. That's an Ariana Grande song. Shortly after that, they're casually chatting about Dodonpaw's motives, and Shadow's like, we don't understand his true motives. Best observe until we do. And then they're going back to competing again, and then they're chatting again. Now Sonic is talking to Shadow about velocity. Just drive. Yeah, Sonic, shut up and drive. That's a Rihanna song. As you can see, Sonic and Shadow lose sight of the objective and are more focused on winning the race. And then, through the power of gay colors, they speed into overdrive and beat Eggman to the finish line. This leads to what I think is the cutest moment they share together in IDW comic history. I won! Who won? Me, right? Both of them look so eager, and you're not used to seeing that with Shadow. Is it a little out of character? Yeah, probably. It's giving Spin and Dash. If you know, you know. They're so cute. Look at them almost holding hands. The comic ends with Sonic and Shadow challenging each other to another race, and they live happily ever after. The end. Team Sonic Racing, Sonic and Shadow balloons. This one's kinda dumb, but in Team Sonic Racing, you'll occasionally see balloons of Sonic and Shadow scattered throughout the racetracks. They're usually apart, but sometimes you'll see their floating heads close together. As trivial as this detail is, I do wonder why there were only balloons of just Sonic and Shadow. It would make a lot more sense if we also saw balloons of Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. I guess they didn't have time to make balloons of other Sonic characters, and Shadow was the most efficient choice since his head is similar to Sonic's. Shadow is jealous of the rookie. Sonic Forces has a lot of removed dialogue that you can find on YouTube. one of the deleted Shadow lines may imply that he is jealous of your custom character. After Sonic praises your custom character for taking out a Death Egg robot, Shadow decides to butt in and say this. Aw, what's the matter, Shadow? Jealous that you're not the one tagging along with Sonic? Counting on each other. In Sonic Heroes, Shadow yells out, "Sonic, we're all counting on you," after completing the first phase of the Metal Sonic boss fight. In the Japanese version of Shadow the Hedgehog, as Shadow chases after Black Doom, Sonic whispers, "We're all counting on you." I think that's a really neat parallel, and I find it sweet that both genuinely count on each other when their lives are at stake. Other moments where Shadow counts on Sonic is during Sonic Battle, Sonic Channel's 2023 Otherworld story, and Sonic Colors DS. Most Sonic fans are familiar with the Wii version of Sonic Colors, but the DS version flies under the radar. Sonic Colors DS is technically canon. I'd like to think that Sonic Colors for the Wii is the abridged version, and the DS goes into more detail with the plot and lore. In the DS version, other characters like Silver, Amy, and Blaze make an appearance. Shadow appears in the Asteroid Coaster levels in Colors DS, and he is a total tsundere to Sonic. In Asteroid Coaster Mission 2, Shadow spots Sonic and Tails, then says, finally. Not even hiding it, he has been waiting to see his boyfriend rival. Tails asks Shadow if he's going to help them out, and of course he puts up a front and says, "I don't see no reason." Sonic is more than capable enough to stop Eggman on his own, so he isn't bothered by that. Right before he leaves, Shadow stops him and challenges him to a mission. You know, to make sure that he hasn't gone soft or anything. When you successfully complete his mission, he says, looks like I don't need to worry. Aw, Shadow cares about Sonic, aw. I can hear the wedding bells. If you lose the mission, Shadow says, I guess I overestimated you, Sonic. Ooh, that's not something Sonic wants to hear. You can see it in his face too. He's not ready to give up. He's determined to win and prove his worth to Shadow. Oh, and the Japanese version is just as fruity. Shadow is quite direct with his rival. You're here at last. I haven't seen you in a while. Let me test you to see if you haven't gotten soft. Looks like I was wrong about you. Ooh, that one stings too. Shadow viewed highly of Sonic, and he failed to meet his expectations. Ouch. When Sonic completes Shadow's challenge a second time, he says, you seem to be in good shape. The writers knew exactly what they were doing. The Sega of Japan writers know their fans all too well. But you haven't even seen the best part yet. In Sonic Colors DS, if you go back and complete Asteroid Coaster Mission 3 and S-rank the level, you unlock this special cutscene. Sonic celebrates another victory, and then Shadow tells him to quit playing around and go stop the doctor. Right after Sonic leaves, Shadow smiles and does a little giggle, and then Omega's like, "What is it, Shadow? My sensors have never detected this sound from you before." And immediately Shadow says, "Nothing. Nothing at all." Keep in mind, this is the only time Shadow smiles in the entire game, and it's because of Sonic. Aww. Let me tell you, S-ranking this particular level is not easy. You have to be perfect to get the S-rank. I think it took me about 30 to 40 attempts, but I finally got it. Sonic Team really made the Sonadow fans work for this cutscene, but I think it was worth it. It's a really cute Sonadow moment. It's funny how most of the Sonadow heavy moments happen in these obscure Sonic games. It's as if Sega knows that Sonadow fans will play every single game that Shadow is in. Don't be a stranger. This is referring to a brief moment between Sonic and Shadow in one of the Archie comics. Shadow is sitting alone, and then Sonic runs by him and says, "Don't be a stranger." And Shadow has this awkward smile on his face. It's gay as hell. I don't know what issue this is in. I'm guessing this is early Archie days because of how awkward it looks. Truthfully, I haven't read the Archie comics and I don't know if I want to, but if you happen to know what issue this is, please share it in the comments. Sonic and Shadow Picnic Post. On July 23, 2024, Sega West quote-tweeted Sega of Japan's post that asked what comes to our minds when we think about summer, with a picture of a Sonic plush with a cute picnic setup, and their response was, "We think about picnics." In the replies, Sega West posted a picture of a Shadow plush on the same picnic blanket and setup. Naturally, Sonadow fans speculated that the Sonic and Shadow plushies are on a picnic date together and are taking pictures of each other. Okay, you know what? Taylor Swift did the exact same thing. I know I said I'd lay off the references, but this is relevant, I promise. Back when she was dating that London boy, Joe Alwyn, they would do this thing where they would take pictures of each other at some location and then post it on Instagram. So on Taylor's post, it looked like she was next to this giant cactus by herself. But if you go to Joe Alwyn's page, you would see a picture of him with the exact same cactus. So then the Swifties would be like, "Ooh, Taylor and Joe are on a date together, ooh." Yeah, it was pretty dumb, but we were all excited for her and we loved Reputation, so. Alright, back to the picnic. So then, Sega Shop Europe decides to butt in and tries to fuel another ship war. "We think Sonic should get a new picnic blanket. Which would he prefer?" And then they shared pictures of the Amy and Shadow Sakura blankets. They're so pretty, by the way, I really want one. But the logical answer is obviously both. So you have more picnic space, one blanket is for you to sit on, and the other one is where you put the food, drinks, and your purses. Not even Sonic. In Sonic Forces episode Shadow, Infinite's voice actor, Liam O'Brien, recorded 2 separate takes of the line, "Not even Sonic can stand against me now." The first time Infinite says that line is when he's bragging about how much power he has, and he sounds insane. You hear the second take of this line through Shadow's memory, and Infinite sounds more callous and sinister.
Not even Sonic will be able to stand against me now. Not even Sonic will be able to stand against me now.
I think it's a really neat detail that gets overlooked. Shadow clearly sounds worried and upset when Infinite mentions Sonic. He genuinely cares about him, so it makes sense that Infinite's words appear more threatening in Shadow's memory. Sonic Kisses Shadow comic. So, there is this comic that's been floating around the internet for over a decade at this point, and it's of Sonic kissing Shadow on the cheek. Many people have wondered if this comic is real, because it looked like it came straight out of Archie, but it is fan-made. This was made by SciSci996. Unfortunately, they are no longer active, at least under that username, but the fact that to this day, people still wonder if this comic is actually real goes to show the impact of this artist's work. Walmart Canada Gaming X's tweet. On July 15th, 2024, Walmart Canada Gaming got the Sonadow fans' attention on Twitter by posting a GIF of Shadow crossing Sonic from the Sonic X Shadow Generations trailer, with the caption, "Running into your ex at Walmart like." Well, Walmart Canada Gaming, I wouldn't know what that's like. I don't go to Walmart. I'm a Howard E. Buck girl. Supporting Me is about Sonic. Supporting Me is a song that plays during Shadow's boss fight with the Bio-Lizard. Very good song, might I add. Some of the lyrics hint that it could be about Sonic from Shadow's point of view. "I believe in my future. Farewell to the Shadow. It was my place to live, but now I need your hand. Lead me out with your light. I've breathed in this disgusting air of darkness, but I never lose out to the pressure." Shadow realizes that the Earth and his future are worth saving, and he's letting go of the vengeance he's held onto for so long. But he can't do it alone. He needs Sonic to help him and lead him out with his light. Sonic is the light that Shadow sees, if you will. It could be about Maria. I've seen a few people speculate that, and it also makes sense. The song Throw It All Away also mentions this light that Shadow sees. You see a light wherever you go. You have to face it again and again. And many people view that as the recurring flashbacks that Shadow sees in his head. You could also interpret the light being Sonic when you think about how in Shadow's adventures, he often runs into Sonic and has to face him over and over again. He is the troublesome but important presence, as Toyota would say. Sonic Adventure 2 also has this yin and yang symbolism going on between Sonic and Shadow. Good and bad, light and dark, top and bottom. So Sonic representing the light in Shadow's point of view makes sense. Be more honest with yourself. At the end of Shadow's story in Sonic Battle, Emerald must fight Sonic and Shadow at the same time to prove how strong he's become. After he defeats them both, he thanks them for looking after him and expresses how happy he is to have them in his life. Not being the sentimental type, Shadow loudly proclaims, "There is no need for a weapon to have feelings. This is ridiculous. I am leaving." Aw, what's the matter, Shadow? Are you saddled with unnecessary feelings? In response, Sonic tells him, "Hey Shadow, maybe you should try learning a thing or two from Emerald and be more honest with yourself." This sticks out like a sore thumb to Sonadow fans because that is something gays in denial are often told in the books, movies, and real life too, of course. Which, valid, I absolutely agree. But to inject my opinion, I feel this subtly shows that Sonic has a good understanding of Shadow and can read him very well. When it comes to comparing their intelligence, Shadow is book smart while Sonic is street smart. Sonic has a very high emotional intelligence and knows when to step in or when he needs to sit back and listen. In quite a few instances, he can tell that Shadow needs to figure things out on his own and knows that he's just putting up a front most of the time. Hence, he doesn't stop Shadow from collecting all the Chaos Emeralds to find answers, unless you do the pure dark or semi-dark path. In the 2021 calendar story, Sonic lets Shadow take the lead in their mission. In that same chapter of Sonic Battle, he lets Shadow take Emerald so they can find answers to Emerald's programming. Despite the occasional squabble, he recognizes that Shadow has a heart and isn't just some battle weapon. Sonic's ability to perceive and understand people is not just limited to Shadow. You see this with so many characters like Merlina, Princess Elise, Chip, even Infinite in the Japanese dub of Sonic Forces. He is immediately able to pick up on the fact that Infinite is just a sad, lonely loser. He's not afraid of him as some of the other characters are, and he can see right through him. I feel that Sonic's Western portrayal doesn't showcase that side a lot, especially during the 2010s, but this also applies to the comics and TV shows. Sonic Prime is probably the most glaring example amongst the Sonic characterization scholars. Sega Japan intended Sonic to be a static character. He doesn't really change his personality or beliefs throughout his adventures. Many fans have questioned why Western media is adamant on making Sonic go through these trials to learn a lesson, and at times, dumbing him down in the process. I don't think it's a bad thing for Sonic to learn a lesson and grow and have a change of perspective. That's kind of what happens in Sonic Adventure 2. But I think it doesn't land as well in Western-produced media like Prime and IDW because it feels forced upon. But that's just my observation. I can't really speak on behalf of the fandom. Let me know what y'all think about this in the comments. That was a tangent. I apologize. Let's get back on track. Shadow thinks Sonic is the ultimate life form. During the final boss of Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow at one point tells Sonic that he thinks he might be the ultimate life form. I've said this before in another video, but coming from Shadow, this is the compliment of all compliments. We know that Shadow holds that title with pride, so for him to tell Sonic that probably means a lot to both of them. And this is the point in the game where they truly understand each other and even develop a seemingly powerful bond. one thing that Sonic tells Shadow is that together they are unstoppable. The dialogue in this boss fight is one of the many reasons why I think their dynamic is so special. And despite suffering through amnesia, Shadow might still hold that opinion of Sonic despite not ever saying it again. You see this happen in Sonic Battle when Shadow depends on him to stop Emerald as he's not in the best state to help. In the 2023 Otherworld story, Shadow injures his leg and hands Sonic his Chaos Emerald to defeat Light Eggman. Really great story, by the way, you should read it. But I think the biggest example that gets overlooked is in the last story of Sonic 06.
If you say it exists in the past, present, and future, I'll destroy them all at once!
Certainly. It might have been possible if he was still alive.
Again, Shadow prides himself in being the ultimate life form, so for him to admit that he doesn't think it's possible without Sonic shows that he really does have a high view of him. Sonic. Why does that name bother me so much? This is a line that Shadow says in Sonic Heroes, and the delivery is just fantastic.
Sonic. Why does that name bother me so much?
This caught the attention of Sonadow fans because of how bother is emphasized. Why does Sonic bother me so much? Thank you, David Humphrey, for this beautiful gem of a voice clip. Sonic and Shadow Chaos Control hand placement in Sonic 06. In the game Sonic 06, Sonic and Shadow find a way to escape the desolate future by simultaneously performing Chaos Control to create a time portal. As they cite the incantation, they hold the emeralds next to one another, and their wrists are touching. Ooh, so romantic. I'm sorry, this is hilarious to me. Now, Sonic and Shadow are not the only duo that performs Chaos Control. In fact, both of them do Chaos Control with Silver later in their stories. But Chaos Control with Silver is slightly different. If you compare Sonic and Silver, their hands are further away from each other, and their wrists are not touching at all. Now, Silver and Shadow unintentionally Chaos Control a time portal after their fight, and in that moment they touch each other, albeit accidentally, and Shadow immediately steps away from him. But when they do it on purpose the second time, they don't touch each other. I think it might symbolize how Sonic and Shadow's relationship has grown, while their relationship with Silver is more on the acquaintance level. That, or they're just so desperate to touch each other. Chaos Rice made artwork of this theory. It's really funny and brilliantly done. You can say that people read too much into this, but like I said in the Space Gadget cutscene, the animators made the effort to execute the interactions in a specific way. Sonic at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Along with the Mario and Sonic at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, Sega released a mobile version of just the Sonic characters, and it has its own unique story mode and everything. As much as people joke about, oh, this is the timeline when Mario died, I'd like to headcanon that this happens before Sonic and Mario reunite. I mean, I don't know if you can say the Mario and Sonic Olympic Games are canon, but I'd like to believe that because these are my two favorite video game franchises of all time, but it's probably not. In this version, Sonic and Tails arrive at Tokyo together to participate in the Olympics, and they check out all the venues in the area. And then they learn that Eggman is trying to take over Tokyo, so Sonic is running around the city to stop him, and he'll occasionally run into other characters. The cutscenes are basically text messages, which I understand. It's a mobile game, it has its limitations. For what it's worth, I do enjoy reading the Sonic and Shadow cutscenes. Shadow is just so dramatic. He is also after Eggman, and he thinks that Sonic is being inefficient. So you've come. Shadow, what are you doing here? Shadow, what are you doing here? That's none of your business. Neither is what's happening here. Leave now. I'll deal with the doctor. You'll what? Winning medals takes too much time. It's the doctor that's the problem. I know just how to deal with him, and you'll only get in my way. Is that right? Well, I hate to break it to you, but I don't like being told what to do. A predictable response. I'll just have to make you leave whether you like it or not. Now that's more like it. Don't come crying to me when you lose, though. Poor Shadow. He's just trying to do his job and stop Eggman in the most efficient way possible. But Sonic just wants to play with him. But ooh, the tension. You can cut it with a knife. It does sound borderline flirtatious at times on Sonic's part. He definitely tries to get a rise out of Shadow. You again. Wait, I recognize that voice. Why do you continue to interfere, Sonic? Interfere? Oh, that's right. You're after Eggman as well. How's that working out for you? Everything is proceeding as planned. My plan would be foolproof if it wasn't for you interfering all the time. Hey, my bad, but I can't back off now. So they continue to play cat and mouse until Shadow's like, I'm going to put an end to you once and for all. Funny that I was thinking the same thing. All right then, let's decide this here and now. The winner gets Eggman, got it? They're competing, and Eggman is the prize? What in the fanfic is this? So you'd think they'd fight each other, but no. They're riding bikes. Of course, Sonic beats Shadow because he's the main character. I didn't think that you, of all people, would be able to defeat me. Yeah, even though he beat your ass 3 times already. Fine, go, Sonic. Do not disappoint me. And then Sonic's like, okay, bye, Shadow. Love you. Let's check out that ramen place for dinner. He defeats Eggman, and that's the game. All joking aside, the Tokyo Olympics for mobile does have a wholesome ending. Despite everything, Sonic tells Eggman that he did a good job competing and invites him to enjoy the Olympics with him. And it's really sweet. For an obscure Sonic game, the character interactions are really funny and cute. Sonic and Shadow merch. Sega has licensed a wide array of Sonic and Shadow merchandise throughout the years, and we are seeing more of that in the Year of Shadow. Of course, I can't cover everything, but I'll show the ones that give me Sonadow vibes. So, Hot Topic, Shadow's favorite store, has these Sonadow pants you can buy. As much as I love Sonic and Shadow, I don't think I'd be wearing that in public. You can also buy a Sonic and Shadow best friend necklace set. That's right. Sonic and Shadow are besties. How sweet. Shadow and Rouge have these best friendship bracelets too, and they're super cute. I'd actually buy them. I believe it was Old Navy that sold a Sonic and Shadow t-shirt that caught the attention of Sonadow fans. If you don't ship them, you might be thinking, how is this considered Sonadow? It's speculated that there is subliminal messaging in this shirt. As you can see, there is a visible slash between Sonic and Shadow. To those that are not terminally online, slash is a term used in shipping culture for love pairings between 2 male characters. It can also be 2 female characters, which is typically referred to as femslash. Sonic/Shadow, Sonadow. This one might be a little bit of a stretch, but they also released this super cute Sonic and Shadow Halloween shirt that says, "Let's get spooky." Aww. This one definitely feels more Sonadow to me. In April 2022, Sega of Japan released keychains of each of their 2021 cover art. Sadly, this was only exclusive to Japan. They look absolutely adorable. In 2023, S-Fire released a Sonic and Shadow statue. Not really Sonadow, but I still wanted to show it because it looks super cool. And of course, Sega of Japan went all out for their pre-order version of Sonic and Shadow Generations. You get a Shadow figure, an art book of the game. It'll be interesting to see the featured artwork. And last, but certainly not least, a keychain of Sonic and Shadow's shoes. They are literally a pair of shoes. That's actually hilarious. But let's keep it real. This is not on the same level as the official Wrightworth wedding rings, not even close. But it looks like Sega is slowly inching their way towards that, just a little. They should really consider it though. If Sega released Sonic and Shadow themed rings, it would sell out in a heartbeat. Now that we're on the topic of Sonadow merch, I really wish they did Sonadow handbags. I would buy that in an instant. Sonadow eyeshadow palettes and lipsticks, Sonadow coated dresses. A Sonic and Shadow blanket would be really nice too. Sega, I'm giving you all these great ideas. Apparently, the girls and the gays have a lot of purchasing power. You should really think about it. This ship really is the gift that keeps on giving because we have one update to the Sonadow merch section. On August 17th, 2024, the Sonic social media team shared a very charming and adorable promo by Primark for their upcoming Sonic collection. It starts with Sonic running around in Green Hill doing his Sonic thing, and then he runs to a Primark store and puts some Sonic merch on the rack. But then Shadow comes in and changes the rack to show Shadow t-shirts. Of course, Sonic isn't happy about that, and he's like, "What are you doing, Shadow?" Then they do that rival glare at each other, and you know something's about to happen. So they both run in circles around the rack. I don't really know the best way to explain this, but due to the speed, their t-shirts morph into each other and create one Sonadow t-shirt. Both of them are surprised that it happens, and then they look at each other and smile. Oh, my heart is melting. This is so sweet, so wholesome. You know what? Sonadow is very wholesome. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Queer flagging in Sonic media. To those who are unaware with the term, queer flagging is a subtle way to communicate LGBTQ+ themes through the use of colors, symbols, clothing, lyrics, objects, etc. It's speculated that there is some queer flagging going on in Sonic. Unfortunately, I can't cover every example, but there's quite a bit out there if you're willing to dig. The most obvious signs are from the IDW comics. For example, the lesbian pride colors seen behind Whisper and Tangle in issue number 61. While no Sonic ship is allowed to be canon, we can pick up what the illustrators are putting down. We know the context and the little moments they share together. In IDW issue number 37, you can see these patterns that have gay, lesbian, and bisexual pride colors. To be clear, I don't think they were confirming the sexuality of these characters, but it's no coincidence that all three patterns are there. I think it's a subtle way of them showing support to the LGBT community. The more questionable examples are mainly from a few games and Sonic Prime. For example, the Chow racing track you see in Sonic Adventure 2 is almost a carbon copy of the first LGBT pride flag created in 1978. The only difference is that the purple stripe is at the top instead of the bottom. This is an example where I have mixed feelings, because on one hand, they had to have known, right? It looks almost the same. But rainbows don't automatically mean it's queer flagging, so it might just be an uncanny coincidence. Regarding Sonic Prime, you see quite a few rainbows and bisexual colors in certain moments. It doesn't seem to mean anything like you would see in She-Ra or the ending of Legend of Korra, especially considering that there weren't any characters that were confirmed to be LGBT. This is where it might border the line of queerbaiting. So, to those that don't know, queerbaiting is exactly how it sounds. Giving your gay audience members the impression or even false hope that a character/characters may be gay, but you don't follow through with it. Sonic Prime had a ton of Sonadow moments, but it didn't actually become canon in the show. Even though they get physically close together and princess carry each other, I still didn't expect them to be a couple. We know that Sega has always been firm on their stance of Sonic not having a love interest. Of course, they're willing to do a little fan service, but time and time again, they have been consistent on Sonic not being in a romantic relationship. So can you really call it queerbaiting when they've been upfront with us in the past? Genuine question to the gays watching, but did you feel queerbaited? I feel dumb for asking, and I get the answer will vary. As a bisexual who likes this ship, I personally didn't feel queerbaited by Sonic Prime. Maybe it's because I already knew Sega's stance on shipping, or that romance was not the focus of the show. When I think queerbaiting, I think of Courtney and Gwen from Total Drama. I never felt so betrayed. They were done so dirty. Anyway, I think I've talked about this long enough. Let's move on. A cute vibe to them. On July 19th, 2021, Sega of Japan posted concept art of the Sonic and Shadow story on Twitter. The caption stated that they had a cute vibe to them. A series of 2021 calendars and wallpapers featuring Sonic with another character. Today, we are releasing a rough drawing of Sonic and Shadow for the month of July. At this point, they both had a bit of a cute vibe to them. Still, it's just as much like them. That they do. They are so cute together. Sonic 06 Solaris Boss Dialogue. When Sonic is running low on rings during the Solaris boss fight, Shadow checks in with him to see if he's doing okay.
Are you okay? Use the Y button to switch with me.
Aw, that's sweet. To be held in your arms. Near the end of Season 3, Episode 7 in Sonic Prime, Shadow instinctively princess carries Sonic in order to rescue him from disappearing. And Sonic tells him, "I never knew you were a hugger." But in the Japanese version, he whispers, "to be held in your arms." Aw, that's sweet. It's worth noting that Toyota, the same writer that stated Sonic is the only one who can get up close and personal with Shadow and reach his heart, oversaw the Japanese subtitles. The Japanese dub isn't the only one that changed up the lines. Some other notable dubs include the French dub, where Sonic says, "We've never been so close," and the Brazilian dub, where he says, "I didn't know you were so affectionate with me." I appreciate these minor changes. I think it's so sweet, and I can't help but root for them to be together. Handsome guy. Another Sonic Prime related translation. In the Chinese dub of Season 2, Episode 1, Sonic calls Shadow Shaiga, which means handsome guy. Shadow the Tsundere. Many fans hold the opinion that Shadow hates Sonic, but the truth is he's actually just a tsundere. He'll put up a front and deny that he cares, but his actions show that he genuinely does care. A lot. And they say that actions speak louder than words. He may voice his displeasure at seeing Sonic, but at the same time, he doesn't seem to mind being in close proximity to him. And yet, he tends to keep his distance with other characters both physically and emotionally. Most of the time, anyway. I don't want to rehash all of Shadow's tsundere moments because we've talked about them in great detail earlier in the video. But again, you'll see these moments in Sonic Battle, Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic 06, Sonic Colors DS, the July 2021 Sonic and Shadow story, even Sonic IDW and Prime. The Spun Threads of Fate. If you've played Shadow the Hedgehog or watched a YouTube review on it, you'd probably know that this game has a total of 326 pathways you could get if you're feeling masochistic. Or you could just go on Sonic Retro to look at all the pathway names. One of the well-known pathways is number 44, the Miracle of Love, aka the Shadami pathway. It's the one where you do dark missions until you get to Cryptic Castle and help Amy find Cream. From there, you only do hero missions and you end up with a pure hero ending. But this game has a few Sonadow-coded pathways, the biggest one being number 312, the Spun Threads of Fate. I've said this before in another video, but that sounds like the name of a fanfic or a romance novel. In total, Sonic has 4 missions in Shadow the Hedgehog, and in the Spun Threads of Fate, you do all of them in one playthrough. You partner with Sonic in Westopolis and Lethal Highway. then you go neutral for Circus Park and Mad Matrix. After that, you get to watch that cute Sonadow cutscene and do the Sonic mission for Space Gadget. And then you team up with him in the final haunt and get the Pure Hero ending. Spun Threads of Fate is my preferred method of getting the Pure Hero ending because the missions are pretty easy and you skip Lost Impact altogether. Wistopolis is the only level where you have to kill a certain amount of enemies. All you have to do is shoot down the alien ship in Lethal Highway. Circus Park neutral mission is a breeze. Mad Matrix is probably the most challenging level to get past because it's confusing to navigate, even when you're just doing the neutral mission. But once you know what you're doing, you can get past it. Space Gadget is a fun level to run through. All you have to do is beat Sonic to the Chaos Emerald. And of course, the final haunt mission is just running with Sonic to find Black Doom. If you're looking for an easy way to get the Pure Hero ending, or you just love Sonadow, I recommend doing the Spun Threads of Fate route. Destiny for 2. This is another Sonadow-coded pathway that sounds like the name of a romance novel. You do the exact same thing as the Spun Threads of Fate path, except you complete the Black Doom mission in the final haunt and battle Sonic instead. Hence the name Destiny for 2. A boss battle, how romantic. A pair of shooting stars. This is another Sonadow-coded pathway that gets you one of the Pure Hero endings, specifically the ending where Shadow wants to fight Sonic for the hell of it. It's almost like Destiny for 2, except you do the hero missions for Mad Matrix and Lost Impact instead of racing Sonic in Space Gadget. A pair of shooting stars sounds a little romantic, but it's most likely a reference to Super Sonic and Super Shadow. Comparing Sonic and Shadow to shooting stars suits them very well. Removed Sonic and Shadow mission in Sonic 06. Yes, that's right. Sonic Team made a Sonadow mission for Sonic 06, but unfortunately, the world was just not ready for it, and it got cut from the game. You don't need me to explain the rushed development of Sonic 06, they just didn't have time. However, you can find voice clips of the scrapped mission online, and Jeracyclo Gaming pieced together the dialogue to the best of their ability, and it sounds really good. Video is linked in the description, and I highly recommend checking it out. In this Sonadow mission that we'll never get to play, Dr. Eggman is after the 7 Chaos Emeralds, so Sonic and Shadow agree to team up. Of course, they share their little quips, but they also work really well together and take the time to check in on each other and make sure they're not hurt.
Not bad.
How about a little help?
Give me a hand here. I didn't need your help. Just leave it to me.
It looks like Dr. Eggman is after the Chaos Emeralds again. Shadow, we're in this one together.
So, I'm stuck working with you. Don't slow me down, Sonic.
Hey, you're late.
Ha! There are still other emeralds. I'll get them before you.
You're talking to me? The doctor never learns, does he? Hurry, there are 3 emeralds left.
I headcanon that this happens after Elise blows out the candle, so the 7 Chaos Emeralds are somehow scattered across Soliana, and so Sonic and Shadow are there to collect them before Eggman does. At some point in the mission, Sonic gets caught in a trap, and Shadow must rescue him.
Eggman's attacks are getting worse. Don't let them do you in. Whoa! Ugh! I can't believe I got caught in a trap. I'm counting on you, Shadow.
I'll show you my ultimate power.
It sounds like Shadow had to build up enough energy to perform a Chaos Blast to free Sonic.
Witness the might of my power. There.
Whoa! Ugh! Not bad.
I told you, didn't I? I'm the ultimate power.
Let's do this again sometime.
And then Shadow gets caught, and it's up to Sonic to rescue him back.
I can't believe this. I'll leave it up to you, Sonic.
No problem.
Nice job, Sonic.
Thanks, Shadow.
This is my favorite part. Sonic and Shadow drive a car together.
Nice job.
I'll drive. You take him down, Sonic. Use the right trigger to fire lock-on missiles.
This piece of junk. We'd be better off without it, wouldn't we?
This buggy is equipped with special armor. With this, you can break through obstacles.
Leave it to me.
Better get going.
Shadow offering to drive is perfect boyfriend material. He's a keeper, Sonic. I also love how Shadow is explaining the mechanics to Sonic, and even though Sonic initially thought they'd be better on foot, he's willing to drive the buggy for Shadow. Of course, they end up crashing.
Whoa! Looks like we're gonna crash! Jump! Are you okay?
Just made it.
You're still too inexperienced. I can't believe it. How can it be?
Hey, what's wrong?
The doctor's not holding back, is he?
Eventually, the duo gets all 7 Chaos Emeralds, Sonic and Shadow become super, and they defeat Eggman.
The Chaos Emeralds are mine. I'll defeat you two together.
Whatever you try, it's useless.
You're just in time. Just as I calculated. It was worth letting you go free. Well then, hand over those emeralds here.
Sonic, let's hurry.
I'll take those emeralds from you now.
Hang on, Shadow!
Witness my power.
Shadow, don't be late.
You little... I'll have the last laugh. Remember that.
This is it, Eggman. Prepare for another defeat.
Sonic, Shadow, the next time we meet, I'll...
It is so tragic that this mission got removed because it sounds so sweet and wholesome. I want to see more Sonic and Shadow missions. Please, Sega. I love it when they team up together and make little jabs at each other and also compliment each other and hang out and, you know, maybe even kiss. Team Dark, Team Sonic Racing interview. To get fans excited about Team Sonic Racing, Sega of Japan released special interviews of each team from the game. The Team Dark interview in particular grabbed the attention of many Sonadow fans. One question the interviewer asks, which racers or teams do you consider as your rivals? And Shadow responds with, I'm going to make that conceited blue hedgehog taste the difference in power between me and him. Yeah, Shadow will prove to Sonic that he's actually the top. Rouge notices how much Sonic lives in Shadow's head rent-free and responds with, oh yeah, you're obsessed with Sonic all the way. And she's right. Team Sonic is asked the same question, and at least Sonic reciprocates the rivalry with Shadow, but he's a lot more nonchalant about it. In fact, he likes Shadow as a rival because he's fun to play with. I'd say the rival in this race is Shadow. He keeps challenging me this time, saying things like ultimate and fastest, so I'm taking him up on it. He seems to have confidence in his driving skills, so he makes for a good playmate. Laughs condescendingly. Ha 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 ha. Matching couples costumes. Sonic and Shadow share matching costumes throughout various games and media. Of course, there's the iconic swashbuckling duo Pirate Sonadow outfits for Sonic Dash. In Sonic Adventure 2, they're wearing the same type of race suit, similar pattern but in different colors. They look good. They look like they're going to a Lady Gaga concert together. In Sonic Rivals 2, they have matching race suits that might be based on the Sonic Adventure 2 outfit. Knuckles has one as well. This one looks like a cheap Fire and Ice costume that they bought at a Party City. They also wear the exact same Halloween costume. And while this isn't a couple's costume per se, I'm sure many of you know about the Shadow onesie that classic Sonic can wear in Sonic Superstars. He looks like he loves wearing it, it's so cute. Sonic Speed Simulator has quite a few matching outfits for the duo. They have a summer outfit, the two are wearing Hawaiian shirts and shades. They also have matching gold sunglasses, gloves, and shoes. Definitely a Riders type of vibe. Speed Simulator also released their Sonic Adventure 2 race outfits. And we can't forget about the Animal Bundle. Cheetah Shadow and Zebra Sonic. If you know your queer fashion history, that's pretty gay. I'm not gonna lie. Recently, Sonic Speed Simulator released Rockstar Sonic and Shadow. Apparently, they even do a little pose together. Of course, Shadow's costume is based off of his stylish stage outfit from Sonic Channel's January 2023 artwork. But Sonic's outfit matches up fairly well, especially when compared to Infinite. Shadow and Infinite have clashing styles. They're wearing completely different colors and blazers, their capes are different, Shadow has a bolder, flashier look, while Infinite is more elegant and refined. Whereas Sonic and Shadow look like a cohesive pair. Poor Infinite, he's been replaced. But now that we have Rockstar Sonic, Sonadow artists can recreate the iconic 2003 VMA's kiss. Sonic would obviously be Madonna. I'm gonna say that Infinite would be Christina because she looked ready for that kiss. Oh yes, I get to kiss the lips that kiss Shadow. Shadow as Brittany is fitting because both of them have been mischaracterized and demonized by people. Anyway, get on it, Sonadow fans. Recreate that kiss. Waking Up song meaning. Waking Up is a song that plays in the credits when you complete a neutral run of Shadow the Hedgehog. Personally, it's my favorite Shadow theme. And the lyrics themselves make the song feel like it's an empowering coming out anthem. Unlock the secrets in your head. You start to look and answers find you. Your inner purpose lies ahead. Waking up, breaking out, this is what it's like to be free. Not another day, no more confusion, no more living like you're dead. This song is pretty underrated, so I haven't seen too many queer analytical discussions, but I get why people would feel this way. Waking up, breaking out of the heteronormative pressures society enforces on us, this is what it means to be free. It's quite ironic that the most liberating song is placed in the neutral endings where Eggman gaslights Shadow into thinking he's an android, but yeah, really good song and criminally underrated. Nuxuge is hetero Sonadow. So, some Sonadow fans have argued that Nuxuge is basically the straight version of Sonadow. And I use the term straight loosely. If you headcanon both of them as bisexual or pan, first of all, valid, and second of all, me too. I absolutely understand why people would feel this way. While I don't think they share the exact same relationship dynamic, I do think it's a good example of the double standard that Sonadow and other gay pairings face. Both pairings start off as enemies and have moments where they're in each other's faces. For example, Knuckles getting close enough to Rouge's face that they could kiss is seen as a Nuxuge moment, but when Shadow does the same thing to Sonic, they're just being rivals. Rouge smiling at Knuckles shows that she has a little crush on him, but Shadow smiling at Sonic doesn't mean anything. Both pairings have had moments where they saved each other from falling to their death, but one of them is accepted as romantic because it's a guy and a girl, and that makes sense to the eyes of hetero society, while the other is brushed off and viewed as siblings, or worse, they really hate each other. Imagine that. Yeah, Knuckles and Rouge are like siblings. Be for real. No one would ever say that. Sonadow Chow... breeding. That sounds wrong. I'm so sorry. In Sonic Adventure 2, it is possible for a Sonic and a Shadow Chow to mate with each other. I don't think it really means anything, but you have the ability to do it. The Sonadow Wiki claims that Sonic and Shadow are the only Sonic-related character Chow that can mate, but I don't know if that's true. I have not spent that much time in the Chow Garden. I've been trying to verify this with other Sonic wikis and watched several Chow breeding videos when I could have been doing something else with my time. I know the Chaos Chow is unable to mate since they're immortal. In case you were about to ask, I did find a video of a Sonic and Amy Chow mating, but it turns out that it's from a Sonic Adventure DX hack and is not actually possible. Sorry, Son Amy fans. From what I read on Chow Island, it sounds like the Sonic and Shadow Chow are attainable, while you either have to play a hack or have a special copy of Sonic Adventure 2 to obtain the other character Chow. They also mentioned that the Tails, Knuckles, and Amy Chow are immortal, like the Chaos Chow, so maybe that's the confirmation that they can't mate? I don't know for sure though, I just want to clarify that because I don't want to spread confusion or misinformation. Jason Griffith cameo. There's a Jason Griffith cameo floating around the internet where he does a cute little skit as Sonic and Shadow. In his Sonic voice, he says, "You live in my head rent-free." It's super cute. Let me show you.
Shadow, Adam didn't ask you to do the lines. Well, I come here rent-free. You sure do. You live in my head rent-free. That's the best place to live.
Speaking of Jason Griffith, he was a guest at the 2023 Sonic Expo, which kicked off on November 11th, and at the end of day one, he took a group selfie with all the attendees, and if you look closely, you'll see a person holding up a painting of that Sonic kissing Shadow gif, and Jason ended up signing it. What a cool guy. The Sonadow painting guy has a Twitter, so be sure to give him a follow. Also, that beautiful painting was done by Isabel, so be sure to give them a follow as well. Sonic's messages in Shadow the Hedgehog Expert Mode. Many fans may not know that Shadow the Hedgehog has an Expert Mode. You unlock Expert Mode by A-ranking every single Shadow the Hedgehog mission and boss fight, which is easier said than done. I am still working on it to this day. I really hope that I can get it eventually, but lost impact. In Expert Mode, Shadow is going through training in order to become a gun agent, and the objective is to get to the goal ring for each stage. Well, most of them. Each character leaves a brief message to Shadow as he starts each stage, including the President and Gun Commander. Sonic checks in with Shadow in 3 stages: Digital Circuit, Gun Fortress, and The Last Way. He is very supportive of Shadow. He asks if he's doing okay and gives him words of encouragement. Once Shadow reaches Gun Fortress, Sonic tells him to be extra careful. You know, typical things that your arch rival tells you. I think his messages are really sweet, and I really like how supportive Sonic was in Shadow the Hedgehog. It's worth noting that Maria, Professor Gerald, and Black Doom also speak to Shadow in Expert Mode. So it is possible that Shadow is imagining all these people cheering him on, but I like to believe that Sonic and friends are leaving these messages for Shadow while he's imagining what Maria, Gerald, and even Black Doom would tell him if they knew he was going through training. Archie issue number 68 cover variant. This alternative Archie cover has made its rounds in the Sonadow fandom. Shadow and Knuckles are back to back. Exclusive coverage. Fight! Knuckles and Shadow battle for custody of the Master Emerald. So they're getting divorced. Then you have Sonic at the bottom of the cover saying, "Wait, which one do I read for? Side piece 1 or side piece 2? A passionate side. Team Sonic Racing's Japanese manual has a pretty funny description for Shadow and hints that he might have a passionate side for his good rival Sonic. A black hedgehog that looks exactly like Sonic. He is the ultimate life form created by Dr. Eggman's grandfather, Professor Gerald. He is usually ruthless and cold, using any means to achieve his goals. But when it comes to competition with Sonic, he has a passionate side? Very interesting. When it comes to descriptions from Sonic manuals, I take them with a grain of salt. I don't know about Sega of Japan, but it's very likely that the marketing team wrote the descriptions for the US and UK versions. The biggest example I can think of is Sonic Battle's English manual. Their description of Sonic and Shadow's confrontation is way off. Sonic Speed Simulator, Anniversary of Sonic and Shadow. On June 22nd, 2024, the official Twitter account for Sonic Speed Simulator posted, "Celebrate Sonic's birthday and the anniversary of Sonic and Shadow." They knew what they were doing. This gets the Sonadow fans talking and gives their account extra engagement. If you're going to say, well, they didn't actually mean it that way. Yes, we know. It's the phrasing. When you hear about an anniversary, usually the first thing that comes to your mind is a wedding anniversary or a relationship anniversary. They could have just said the Sonic Adventure 2 anniversary, but they decided to say the anniversary of Sonic and Shadow instead. Because, again, they know it'll get Sonadow fans' attention and give them a boost in engagement. Anyway, happy anniversary, Sonic and Shadow. Issue number 69, Virgin Variant. Okay, you cannot make this stuff up. For Sonic IDW issue number 69, one of the variant covers was found on eBay. It's labeled as Sonic the Hedgehog number 69 Virgin Variant. I know this isn't Sonadow specific per se, but lots of Sonadow jokes were made when this was discovered. I am no longer. This is referring to a line that Shadow says in Emerald's chapter in Sonic Battle. Eggman unleashes the destructive programming within Emerald, causing him to lose control of himself. In response to this, Shadow says, I am no longer. You must go, Sonic. This is a brief interaction that has mystified Sonadow fans, myself included. No longer what? What did Shadow mean by that? In the Japanese version, he says, you go, Sonic. So this was just a translation quirk. Sonic Battle has quite a few of those throughout the story. I'm guessing he was trying to say that he's not in the condition to fight. I definitely think he was in a state of shock when Eggman corrupted Emerald, and now he's counting on Sonic to help him. Craig of the Creek Sonadow reference. For those who are not aware, Craig of the Creek is a show on Cartoon Network that premiered in March 2018 and is still running today. In the episode Fan or Foe, there is a not-so-subtle Sonadow reference. As much as I'd love to show the entire clip, I don't want to get copyright claimed by Cartoon Network, so I will describe the reference to the best of my ability. But Fan or Foe is episode 25 of season 3, and you can watch Craig of the Creek on HBO Max. Craig attends ElderCon and meets Diane, a fellow passionate fan of Slide the Ferret, a parody of Sonic the Hedgehog. At one point, he and Diane are playing with figurines of Slide and Silhouette the Mongoose, who is obviously Shadow. They recite a knockoff of Sonic and Shadow's Prison Island confrontation in Sonic Adventure 2. They talk about how much they love Slide the Ferret, and then Craig says, alright, now let's make them kiss. Do I need to explain more? Shadow, why? The initial draft of Sonic Forces has been floating around the internet for quite some time, and you can read the original dialogue as well as review notes from Sonic Team. In the first cutscene where Sonic is attacked by a Phantom Ruby clone of Shadow, Sonic was originally going to say, Shadow, why? Which is so heartbreaking. You can sense the betrayal and hurt that Sonic is feeling. And that makes sense because they've been on decent terms since Shadow the Hedgehog and arguably Sonic Battle. It's not to say they don't have the occasional scuffle, but I think people forget that Sonic and Shadow don't really fight that much throughout the games. Another line that was changed was in the cutscene where Sonic confronts Shadow, only to learn that it was a Phantom Ruby fake. Originally, the line was, Shadow, why are you doing this? Instead of, alright Shadow, what's the deal? Again, it feels a lot more personal, and that's why I prefer some of the original draft over what we ended up getting. It's a shame that most of the dialogue was changed or cut out altogether. While I don't think it would have fixed the core issues of the story, it would definitely be a lot more tolerable to sit through. Reading the review notes, I'm just baffled at how the feedback was so unprofessionally delivered. It's no wonder they struggled with the story. Sonadow Racing Game. So, in late January 2001, Sega launched Sonic Cafe, a mobile phone service only available in Japan, where you could play a variety of Sonic games exclusive to the service. One of those games was a racing game with just Sonic and Shadow. It was called Sonic Racing Shift Up, and it was released in November 2002. Not really a Sonadow racing game, but these two look like they're on a go-kart date. I was not able to find any footage of the game, but according to the Sonic Wiki, how it works is that you play as Sonic and you have to shift gears as quickly as possible to beat Shadow. Considering that this was only playable on cell phones from the early 2000s, there were definitely limitations. I'm sure if the developers were able to, they would have added more Sonic characters. But I like that it's just Sonic and Shadow racing cars and trying to prove who's the better driver, even though they could just race each other on foot. Since it was released in late 2002, I wonder what players thought about Shadow being in that game. I'm sure Sonic Team knew that they were going to bring back Shadow around that time, but I don't think the public knew that Shadow was going to come back. Maybe in another timeline, Sonic managed to save Shadow from falling, and one of the first things they did when they got back to Earth was go on a go-kart date. The Sonic manga. Illustrated by Santa Harukaze. I am so sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. The Spin and Dash manga was released in July 2003. This was exclusive to Japanese audiences, and unfortunately, I have yet to find a fully translated version, but a few panels have been translated for the enjoyment of English-speaking Sonic fans. You want to talk out of character? This is as out of character as it gets. I don't even think Twitter takeovers go this far. One of the more infamous panels is this one right here, where it looks like Sonic and Shadow are taking a shit together. I'm sorry. What else could that be? And then they act like total besties the next day. Obviously, this isn't canon. I know what I said earlier, but don't argue with me on this one. This is not canon, nor is it in character. Sega has released several kart racing games over the years. This has always perplexed many fans. Sonic is faster on foot, why would he want to drive a car? Well, ladies and gentlemen, gays and theys, I have a theory for you. A game theory, if you will. Shadow is the reason Sonic likes cars. Let's go over the history. Sonic Drift was the first ever kart racing game that was released in the franchise, March 1994. Sonic was driving a race car along with his other friends and Eggman. But in Sonic R, which was released in November 1997, Sonic chooses to run on foot. Nobody knows why, but perhaps Sonic didn't enjoy his experience with driving a race car. Fast forward to Sonic 06. Elise blows out the flame, restarting the events, and this time, Sonic and Shadow team up to defeat Eggman from collecting all 7 Chaos Emeralds. At some point, a barrage of Eggman robots attack, and Shadow gets the idea to use the spare military buggy to take down the enemies. Initially, Sonic isn't feeling it. He thinks it's useless and they'd be better off on foot. But then Shadow tells him, "Let me show you how to really drive." And he explains the mechanics of the vehicle and all it can do. And they're driving around and Sonic's enjoying himself. And at that point, he understood the appeal. 4 years later, Sonic is into driving race cars in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. And of course, in Team Sonic Racing, he's seen racing with Shadow in all the promo videos. That Sonic Cafe Sonadow racing game might contribute a little bit to this silly theory. Original Sonic and Shadow Princess Carrie animation. In Season 2, Episode 1 of Sonic Prime, Sonic saves Shadow from falling to his death in the Shattered Space Void. It was a huge Sonadow moment, and everyone and their mother was going crazy about it. On November 21st, 2023, Eric Weiss, writer, director, and executive producer of Sonic Prime, shared the original storyboard animation for this moment on his social media. And in the original storyboard, Shadow briefly opens his eyes and gazes at Sonic while he's tenderly holding him in his arms. Damn, the fact that this moment was originally a little gayer. Sonadow.com. Sonadow.com is the first website/online community dedicated to Sonadow fans. It was created sometime in 2003, a couple years after Sonic Adventure 2. Say what you will about the site's content, but I think it's pretty interesting that the Sonadow fandom had an online footprint that early in the 2000s. The internet back then was not what it is today. Think about it. Sonadow.com was created before YouTube, Twitter, maybe even MySpace, depending on the month it was created. That's crazy. At the time of this recording, the website still exists, but is currently undergoing revisions. Sonic and Maria parallels. Some Sonadow fans have occasionally made comparisons between Sonic and Maria through their analysis and artwork. There are a few interesting parallels between both characters, and it's more than just the color blue. As I mentioned previously, Sonic or Maria could be the light in Throw It All Away and Supporting Me. Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog is the last thing Shadow remembers Maria saying, and is also the last thing Sonic says in Sonic Adventure 2. The fact that Shadow had to see Maria die and Sonic nearly die in 06 and Prime, in both instances he looks hopeless, but when he realizes there's a chance to save Sonic, he's very determined. A more recent example, Shadow tries to run to safety while holding Maria's hand. He does the same thing with Sonic in Prime while they're trying to escape a decaying ghost hill. While Sonic and Maria don't have the exact same personality, they're both free-spirited. Maria was highly interested in the planet Earth, while Sonic tries to protect the planet and all those who inhabit it. In the Maria missions, she's voiced her disdain for unjust force from Gun, and of course, Sonic hates oppression. It is very interesting to see the similarities between Sonic and Maria. Could it be that Maria was reborn as Sonic? It's all making sense. Oh my god, Sonic, do you remember being born?
That's a dead kid.
I'm sorry. I love Petscop, okay? I've watched it more times than I'm willing to admit. In all seriousness, I don't think Maria was reborn as Sonic. I don't even know how that works, but it is clear that the two saying Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog was intentional. Santa's Reindeer. In December 2021, Evan Stanley, a writer and illustrator for the IDW comics, drew several Sonic characters in holiday outfits. They all look absolutely stunning, by the way. Sonic is wearing a Santa outfit, while Shadow is dressed in a teal cape, winter red bottoms, and golden antlers, looking very majestic. If you look closely, there are golden mistletoes throughout Shadow's ensemble. And with him being a reindeer and Sonic being Santa, you know, that's Santa's reindeer. To any Deltarune fans watching, this reminds me of Rudy and Asgore's winter tradition. To those who don't know, the Undertale Deltarune fandom have speculated that Asgore and Rudy, Noelle's dad, shared romantic feelings for each other. For Undertale's 5th anniversary, Toby Fox shared winter dialogue that was originally intended to debut in the Undertale Alarm Clock app. If you click on Asgore, he shares memories of him and Rudy dressed up as Santa and Rudolph. Rudy loved the holidays, you know. Around that time of year, he'd put on his glowing red nose and we'd walk into the night together, placing presents side by side in the snow. I was his Santa. He was my Rudolph. With Sonic as Santa and Shadow as a reindeer, and with the golden mistletoes, there might be little hints of Sonadow. Apparently, Evan Stanley is allegedly a Sonadow enjoyer. I don't think it's really that deep, but it is a funny coincidence, I guess. I Am All of Me musical gift. For Sonic's 33rd birthday, Sonic Team's Twitter account shared a new page on their website that has 21 musical gifts that you can give to Sonic. When you click on one, a song from one of the games will appear, and Sonic will share his thoughts on the track. Just a heads up, the website is written in Japanese, but can be translated to English. However, I don't know how spot on the translation is, but it's still easy to follow. When you click on the black and purple gift, it shows the track I Am All of Me, the main theme from Shadow the Hedgehog, and Sonic responds, "Oh, this is an awesome heavy track. The powerful rock sound makes my heart beat faster and my spirit burns. You really are all of you. Isn't that great?" I don't know who wrote Sonic's reactions, but that has to be the sweetest thing I've heard Sonic say. That makes me feel so warm and fuzzy. A part of me thinks that Sonic is saying that to you, the reader, but the possibility that Sonic could be saying that about Shadow, like, it's great that you are yourself, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Aww. Sonic is so supportive. He's a keeper, Shadow. Shadow's reaction to Sonic holding Elise. After Princess Elise revives Sonic in the last story of Sonic 06, she suddenly drops to her knees and Sonic holds her for a few seconds. Each character on screen has their own reaction, but Shadow's is quite interesting. In the beginning, he had his arms crossed, but he drops them as soon as Elise falls to her knees and Sonic holds her. What makes this reaction so interesting is that it's the same reaction he had when Omega told him that he was the one responsible for killing him in the future. He was clearly taken aback by the news and his eyes were wide with shock. He also drops his arms when he learns that Sonic is dead, which we'll talk about later. I mean, it's understandable that he would have the same reaction when he sees the love of his life holding someone else. It's gonna be okay, Shadow, you'll get through this. Was this a coincidence? Well, believe whatever you want to believe. Joy Police, Sonic and Shadow Intercom Dialogue. Joy Police is an indoor theme park chain created in 1994 by Sega. At the time of this recording, 4 parks are currently operational, 2 in Japan and 2 in China. On June 23, 2024, Sonic's birthday, the Joy Police Cafe launched its Sonic-themed meals. And the attendees have shared online that occasionally you'll hear dialogue of Sonic and Shadow through the intercom. The cafe also played new dialogue on June 29th as well. Of course, the dialogue is in Japanese and was voiced by Junichi Kanemaru and Koji Yusa, Sonic and Shadow's Japanese voice actors respectively. Sadly, we don't have any audio clips at the moment, but luckily, Garricky, an absolutely talented artist, was able to share the dialogue for both dates. This is the dialogue for June 23rd. I win. So you're buying me a Sonic birthday plate, right? And don't forget to congratulate me, okay? I bought it. Happy birthday. Are you happy now? This isn't the Sonic birthday plate, is it? This is Shadow's black curry omelet. You buy the Sonic birthday plate with your own money. Delicious. Coolest plate ever, man. Still, I'll feel like I've totally conquered Shadow when I flatten Shadow's plate. One more game, and I'll conquer your plate on your dime. I knew it. It's canon that Sonic and Shadow compete with each other, and then buy each other food, and pretty much go on a date. I think it's super wholesome that Sonic tells Shadow he has the coolest plate ever. You know, 'cause Shadow's the coolest. And I think it's pretty funny that they want to conquer each other's plates, whatever that means. And here is the June 29th dialogue. Hey Shadow, you here to see the view from here too? Sonic, I just happened to be over here doing some research. Okay, then see that big bridge over there? I heard that thing changes in appearance differently, during the day and at night, right? Maybe we should investigate. That's none of your business. But that bridge does look like something. Yeah, it looks like that bridge on Radical Highway that you and I raced on a few times. Hey Shadow, how about we go back and forth to that bridge and play a game? I'm 3 for 2, so you want to beat me, right? What are you talking about? I'm 3 for 2. I guess I need to show you how good I am. Okay, it's decided. Let's get to it. Ready? Go! It's cute how Sonic is able to trick Shadow into going sightseeing with him. I really love these interactions. It's sweet, it's funny, and they're still rivals, but they're also pretty chill together. And I personally prefer this over what we got with Tails Tube 7. The Sonic Shadow Jet Love Triangle. A handful of fans out there speculate that Sonic and Jet may have had more than the rival relations with each other, if you know what I'm saying. And I have some evidence to back this up, taking into account that everything is canon per Aaron Webber, clearly a reliable source. There might be hints that Sonic, Shadow, and Jet were in a love triangle, or technically a love angle. Let's go back to the Twitter takeovers. Only the most delusional Sonadow Swiftie can piece this together. That's me. I'm the delusional Sonadow Swiftie. In the 2022 Sonic Twitter takeover, it's confirmed that Shadow has been a fan of Taylor Swift since the beginning. Taylor released her self-titled debut album in 2006, and it had quite a few breakup songs. Should Have Said No, Picture to Burn, Teardrops on My Guitar, and Cold as You. Wow, what a coincidence that this was in 2006. What else happened in 2006? Sonic Riders, Jet's big debut. So, Jet comes into Sonic's life, and they hit it off as rivals. They share a moment where they gaze into each other's eyes twice. They even make an X with their extreme gear. Wait, that's supposed to be Sonic and Shadow's thing. Shadow learns of this rival affair, and poor Shadow is understandably upset. I thought our rivalry was special, but he ditched me for that green chicken. One fateful day, he hears Taylor's music on the radio, and the lyrics really resonated with him, and he's been a fan ever since. Sonic is Shadow's all too well 10-minute version. You might be thinking, this theory is pretty flimsy, and you would be right. However, Ian Flynn, the head writer of the Sonic IDW comics, has implied on his podcast that the IDW comics are canon. You're probably going to ask, has anyone else from Sonic Team confirmed this statement? To my knowledge, no. But everything is canon because the social media team said so. In the 2022 Sonic IDW Annual, Jet gets his own little story, and in the beginning you see his filthy room, and if you look closely, you'll see this ripped up picture of Jet with Sonic on the torn off side. Oh, they're exes. That's screaming Regina George. But also, Jet looks happy in that picture. He was happy to be around Sonic at one point in time. Wait, is that Sonic's glove? Those are different from Jet's. Damn, the plot thickens. I suppose Sonic and Jet's rivalry, was short-lived and Sonic went back to messing around with Shadow, and that made poor Jet upset. Sonic is the Heartbreak Prince. You better lock up your man. Okay, yes, this theory is stupid. It goes without saying, but we are at the point of the iceberg where the theories are widely speculative and only have tiny bits of random, incohesive lore backing the theory. It's not my fault that the Sonic social media team made Shadow a Swiftie. I guess there's a reason why not everything should be canon. Sonic and Jet are definitely exes. That's canon for sure. I can't let you go, not like this. This is a line that Sonic says to Shadow when he's confronting him before the semi-dark and pure dark boss fights.
Get out of my way.
Shadow, I can't let you go. Not like this.
No, it's not intentionally romantic, but I do agree the line does feel out of place, unless you want to interpret that Sonic loves Shadow. In the Japanese dub, Sonic says, "I'm not going to let you do as you like any longer," which makes a lot more sense. Sonic is at the point where he has to intervene. So my take on it is that it's just an awkward translation. When he says, "I can't let you go, not like this," basically Sonic wasn't going to initially stop Shadow from finding answers, but now that his actions are threatening the lives of everyone on the planet, Sonic can't idly stand by. Not the best way to phrase it, but I will say that the English script of Shadow the Hedgehog has its share of translation quirks, which is a shame because it's part of the reason why the story is so misunderstood. Regardless of which version, I still think the confrontation is sad. Despite Shadow acting aloof towards Sonic, Sonic wanted to believe in him, but now he sees someone who is a shell of themselves. But again, I recommend looking at the Japanese translations. I think it will give you a better perspective of how Sonic Team meant to portray Shadow and his relationship with other characters. Shiro Maekawa bought a Sonadow Dojin. On March 30th, 2019, Shiro Maekawa, the creator of Shadow the Hedgehog, posted a picture of fan-made Sonic works he purchased. If you look closely, one of the items was a Sonadow Dojin. If you don't know what a Dojin is, it's a term used in Japan that is basically a fan-made product of an existing character. Now, Dojins have a reputation of being inherently sexual, but that isn't always the case. But in this instance, it's definitely Sonadow and quite suggestive, there's no denying it. Regardless if Maikawa genuinely ships them or not, I think it's pretty cool that he bought one and was happy to share it with his followers. King Arthur and Sir Lancelot romance novels. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the game Sonic and the Black Knight. Sonic is summoned to this mysterious world and meets alternate versions of Shadow, Blaze, and Knuckles, who are actually Knights of the Round Table. Shadow is Sir Lancelot, and by the end of the game, everyone learns that Sonic is the true King Arthur. There are a few novels that portray Sir Lancelot and King Arthur in a romantic light, or they portray Lancelot as queer and struggling with his identity. Most of these novels were published well before Sonic and the Black Knight. Would I expect Sonic Team to know about this? No. But hey, it is pretty interesting. Mists of Avalon is probably the most well-known Arthur-Lot story, but it's worth noting that King Arthur and Sir Lancelot's relationship is one of the subplots in the book and is not the main focus. I started reading Mists of Avalon a few years ago, but I cannot be bothered to finish the book because it's just so much. That book is like 900 pages, and it was a headache for me to read. I didn't even get to the spicy Arthur-Lancelot moments, and I hope one day I can pick it up and at least make a dent in it, but I am a very slow reader. One book I did finish a few years ago was Lancelot and the King by Sarah Luddington, which came out in 2018. And oh my god, it is a doozy. Of course I'm rooting for Lancelot and Arthur, but there were moments where I'm like, what is happening right now? What is going on? It's not bad, but it just gets a little weird sometimes. I don't know how to explain it, but all I will say is that if you're curious enough to read these books, they are for adults, all right? No, I have not read part 2, so don't ask. Shadow's reaction to Sonic's death. So, you all know that Sonic dies in Sonic 06, and everyone is grieving the loss of his passing, and each character has their own reaction. While Shadow's is subtle, it's also quite somber when you dig into it. As Eggman points out that Mephiles' manipulation is the cause of all of this, Shadow and Amy are the first in the group to look at Sonic, and then the rest collectively notice him shortly after. While Amy, Tails, and Knuckles walk towards Sonic, Shadow briefly looks at him and then looks back. I don't see this as a sign that he doesn't care. What I think Shadow is thinking in that brief moment is that Sonic is pretty durable and he's probably fine. It takes everyone a moment to realize that Sonic is dead, and that's when they start to grieve. As soon as Shadow realizes that Sonic is dead, his demeanor changes. Most of the time, he can't bring himself to look at Sonic's dead body. Shadow stands in the back and keeps his distance from the group. Again, we see the dropping of the arms, and he closes his eyes. When Silver blurts out, "Oh, that's why Mephiles wanted me to kill Sonic before," Shadow opens his eyes and slowly turns away from him. To me, it looks like he's trying to hold back tears, but that's because I do exactly what Shadow is doing here when I'm trying not to cry in front of a group of people. As mentioned before, he openly admits that it's impossible to defeat Solaris without Sonic. Yes, the ultimate life form is saying that. And again, he turns away from Sonic's body and crosses his arms. There's one subtle moment that is completely overlooked. When Elise feels Sonic's spirit and suggests that he's still out there, you see a few characters that react to that statement. Amy is the main focus of the frame, but look at Shadow. He very slightly turns towards Elise when she says she doesn't think that Sonic is dead yet. It's very subtle, but just like Amy, Shadow realizes that there may be a chance to save him. Shadow is very stoic, but at this moment, I think he's hopeful that they can bring Sonic back to life. The moon symbolism. After reading the July 2021 story, you've probably noticed the amount of attention directed towards the moon and Space Colony arc. It's implicitly confirmed that the Space Colony arc represents Shadow, while the moon represents Sonic. Like the Space Colony arc, Shadow is a man-made invention, while the moon is a natural occurrence like Sonic. Well, not really natural, but you know what I'm saying. Shadow quietly gazes at the Ark, and while no one really knows how much memory and truth is left in Shadow's heart, or what he's thinking at that moment, the silence seemed to be the answer to Sonic. This is a brilliant example of Sonic's emotional intelligence and how perceptive he is, although sometimes he miscalculates, like in this instance. Sonic then lowers his hand and points at himself, telling Shadow, "I'm the moon, I'm your moon," and he's being cheeky about it. Of course, this frustrates Shadow and he leaves. Remember, if he answers carelessly, Shadow will disappear into the darkness in an instant, and in this case, Sonic answered carelessly. Sonic doesn't chase after Shadow. Instead, he watches him leave, and while Sonic was grinning, there was something wistful about Shadow's departure. There was a shadow that was drifting away from the warmly lit, peaceful city, as if it were being ostracized. It was so small that no one paid it any attention. Only the moon, overlooking the bustling streets of this city, seemed to watch over that shadow forever and ever. Even while Shadow thinks he's alone, Sonic still keeps an eye on him and will continue to do so as long as he's alive. Do you know the song Take It by Cafune? It went viral on TikTok a couple years ago. Every time I listen to that song, I think about the Sonic and Shadow story. That is the sad Sonadow song. A Perfect Pair by Biba Doobie is another song that makes me think of the July 2021 story. Same with See You Soon. That one's more hopeful, for any of you hopeless romantics. One last thing. In the beginning of the story, Sonic was gazing at the night sky at Mission Street because it had the best view. Later in the story, it says that the astronomical show of the Ark and the moon is Sonic's favorite, symbolizing that the times he sees Shadow are his favorite. I love Sonadow. I love it so much. It's such a beautifully written relationship. Red Apple symbolism. In IDW issue number 36, there's a brief moment between Sonic and Shadow in the woods, full of apple trees, and it's considered a subtle Sonadow moment by the shippers. After they saved a local village from an avalanche that kind of ended up being a false alarm, they walk together with Shadow's adorable Chow, and Sonic tells him that he's glad he came to help. Shadow drops the red apple that he was holding to feed his Chow and responds with, "Don't overthink it, Hedgehog," which I don't think he was. I think you're the one who overthinks it. Even Sonic seemed a bit put off by that. Yeah, for sure, dude. So, what is the significance here? Well, red apples have been used as a metaphorical device in mythology, religion, and even general media. It's considered the forbidden fruit and symbolizes temptation. Eve gave into the temptation and took a bite of the fruit of knowledge. It can also represent love and sexuality from a secular point of view. Shadow himself is holding a red apple, perhaps considering the temptation. He then tosses the apple to his Chow, as if he's letting those feelings go for the time being. Or the Shadow Chow is a representation of his inner self, or his id, and he is trying to conceal those feelings. That's why I feel he's projecting when he tells Sonic not to overthink it. You can see the Shadow Chow eagerly following Sonic until Shadow tosses the apple at them. One could speculate that he's trying to prevent himself from being too close and vulnerable. He needs to keep himself at a distance. Some fans have pointed out the tiny heart between Sonic and Shadow, and both are surrounded by the red apples, potentially meaning that the temptation will still linger. Now, if you're going to tell me, don't overthink it like Shadow said, Sonic was meant to be analyzed in great detail. Could this observation be a stretch? To be honest, I don't know, but I do feel that the apples are symbolic of something. This moment felt highly intentional by the illustrators. October 2021, Sonic and Shadow Generations Easter egg. In 2021, Sega Japan's Instagram account would post monthly calendars that contained pictures of Sonic plushies, while their Twitter account released the Sonic Channel artwork. Interestingly, in October 2021, the picture was Sonic and Shadow sitting next to each other with their pumpkins. How sweet and wholesome. But wait a minute. This was the October picture. Sonic and Shadow Generations will be released on October 25th of this year. Could this have been a hint of what was to come in the future? Let's think about this. Depending on the complexity, a game can take around 2 to 7 years to complete, and it's confirmed that Sonic Team knows their next title at least a couple years in advance. With that in mind, it's likely that the Shadow portion of Sonic and Shadow Generations was in the works during 2021. Interestingly, Sonic Colors Ultimate was released in September 2021. Knowing that Sonic and Shadow Generations will be released in October of this year, Sega had Sonic and Shadow as the calendar picture for the month of October 2021, basically saying, here's the next remaster you can expect in October. And this was the only month in 2021 that it was just Sonic and Shadow alone together. Oh my god, they knew all this time! Okay, sorry Sonadow fans, I do have to bring us back to reality for a little bit. As riveting as this is, it's unlikely that Sega knew the release date that far out in advance. I believe common practice is that video game companies will select their release date when their game is finished or pretty close to completion. I would imagine that Sonic and Shadow Generations was nowhere near completion around that time, so they probably didn't have a specific date or month planned. Video game companies also have to take into account other potential release dates from their competitors, so sorry to get you all excited for nothing. I mean, I don't want to say it's impossible. Maybe they did know all that time, and that is quite the planning flex. Regardless, I think this is a really fascinating coincidence. But in September of 2022, Sega of Japan released a Sonic and Shadow hoodie. I don't know if you'd call this an intentional Easter egg or hint, but at that point, Sonic and Shadow Generations was definitely in development. Binary black hole comparison. So, stick with me here. One way you can interpret Sonic and Shadow's relationship is two black holes entering each other's orbit. The binary black hole system releases an immense amount of energy through gravitational waves with distinctive waveforms, creating dramatic distortions. Viewing it from the orbital plane, it looks like a continuous cycle of the two briefly merging and then pulling apart. They say that the merging of two black holes is one of the rarest occurrences in the universe. Perhaps even a rare, up-close and personal celestial relationship. It is a very slow process, and it can take up to 10,000 years, exactly like Sonic and Shadow. From our point of view, it's a continuous cycle of them getting close, pulling away, and getting close again, due to the gravitational pull they have towards each other. Pathway number 321 in Shadow the Hedgehog is called Sparks on the Horizon. Could they mean the event horizon? Over time, these two black holes get closer and closer. Throughout the games, Sonic and Shadow will share those sudden, rare, intimate moments with one another, and then they briefly go their separate ways until they meet again. And now, we are beginning to see portrayals of them becoming closer than they have ever been. It's only a matter of time for the inevitable to happen, where they collide and form into one beautiful relationship. Or they'll form into Shattuck, I guess. Sonadow canon theory. So this theory/opinion is very niche. It originated in the Sonadow wiki, but it is not widely discussed on other platforms like Twitter. I've refrained from talking about the wiki unless additional context was needed because it gets very conspiratorial, which is why I do not recommend visiting that site, nor do I condone the demonization and sheer disrespect of individual Sega employees and affiliates. It's a shame because I think some of the analysis on the games and the Sonic Channel story is good and could stand on its own, but the conspiracy portion delegitimizes the entire thing. So, obviously, take this with a grain of salt. But this theory speculates that Sega of Japan wants Sonadow to be canon, but there's disagreement with Sega of America and I suppose all of Sega West in general. I can understand why one would feel this way. How many of these coincidences have to happen for the whole fandom to recognize it as a pattern? But I just don't think this is true. Sega has always remained neutral on the stance of Sonic canonically being in a romantic relationship. Of course, they'll throw little bits of fan service every now and then to please the shippers, but they know their fandom. They know that if they made one Sonic ship canon, it's going to upset a lot of people, regardless of what ship that is. The best way to handle this is to keep things ambiguous and let the fans have their headcanons. Sometimes no answer is the best answer. Of course, Sega employees and affiliates will have their own individual opinions. If Sega sent out an anonymous survey to every employee that's been involved in making Sonic games and asked them what their favorite Sonic chip is, I'm sure quite a few of them would pick Sonadow. Some would probably pick Sonami or Sonaze or Shadouge, and I'm sure they do appreciate the fan art and how passionate and analytical the Sonadow community is. But I think we need to be careful and reel back on the speculations and conspiracies and making assumptions or accusations against certain individuals that are just trying to do their job. Remember that these are real people and they don't owe us anything. If Sonic Team wanted to go for it, they would do it on their own terms. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get caught up in the moment too. When the July 2021 Sonic Channel story came out, I was ecstatic and was like, oh my god, they're basically telling us that Sonadow is real. When their PR team posted Sonic and Shadow looking at flowers, it happened again. Oh my god, they're signaling to us Sonadow canon. And yeah, if Sega hates Sonadow fans, then why are we always winning? It is a great time to be a Sonadow fan right now. It is our turn. And who knows how long that's going to last. We have to remember that Sega is a corporation, and while video game sales are the majority of the company's revenue, a portion of their revenue comes from merchandise and brand deals. I know this sounds cynical, but I'm sure they've learned that they can profit off of Sonadow fans just as easily as Sonami fans. A game titled Sonic X Shadow Generations, an official Sonic and Shadow coloring book. Sonadow fans are immediately on board, and we are all the more willing to give them our money. Let me tell you, I have never been to a Bahama Bucks before. I didn't even know it existed until the Sonic and Shadow promo, and I was determined to get that collector's cup or Sonadow toothpick. So my partner and I went to the nearest location, and it was awful. They already sold out of the collector's cups, they ran out of napkins, and the tables were sticky. Apparently the Shadow Ice tastes really bad, so I got the Sonic one, and I hardly made a dent in it. It was so sour. We spent $20 that we're never getting back, and we hardly finished our snow cones. So, was it really worth it in the end? Well, I did manage to get 2 Sonadow pics that I preserve in my closet, so I guess it was worth it. That's just the power that these 2 characters have. That is the power of the Sonadow ship. I guarantee you, many other people went to that same Bahama Bucks to get the Sonadow cup. All of this Sonadow merch we're getting, Sonadow Prime, Sonadow Generations, the July 2021 Sonadow story, Sonic riding Shadow's motorcycle. Like, Sega knows. They know how excited Sonadow fans are, and they're continuing to fuel the excitement. And to the Sonadow fans watching, just enjoy it. Again, we don't know how long this is gonna last. I'm not saying that you should keep quiet with your criticisms and feedback, but I've noticed that a significant portion of the Sonadow fandom gets a bit too concerned with accurate characterization and being canon compliant. For example, it's actually out of character for Sonic to hug Shadow and be that affectionate with him. But it's a moment that happened for a few seconds and he doesn't hug him again. It's very strange to be told by other Sonadow fans that we can't enjoy the Sonadow moments in Sonic Prime because it's out of character for both of them. Come on, like they added those moments in for us to enjoy it. This isn't just limited to Sonic media. If you are a Sonadow fan on Twitter, I'm sure you're familiar with the discourse of how a lot of the fan art and fanfics aren't accurate to the characterization. I know for the longest time, Sonadow fans have been told by the haters that their fan art and fanfics are out of character, so I do wonder if part of the fan base is doing it as an overcorrection, or to prove that we actually know the characters better than the other Sonic fans. We're the ones with media literacy. And I get it. The last thing I want to hear is, ew, you ship Sonadow? You've clearly never played a Sonic game before. But we shouldn't be shaming others for making sweet and cutesy artwork or fanfics that you think is out of character. That's literally what shipping is for. It's so strange to me because I have not seen this with other mainstream Sonic ships. I've never seen Sonamy or Shadouge fans or fans of any other Sonic ship throw shade at each other for not portraying the characterization accurately in their work. Maybe it exists, but I have never seen it. This is a very recent thing, and it specifically happens on Twitter, of course. But I've also heard that it's been happening on Tumblr too, so... On one hand, I can understand wanting to indulge in fan content that's accurate to canon. Personally, I enjoy reading fics that are more aligned with characterization. But I also love looking at fan art of them doing cute couple stuff. Maybe I just want to unwind and look at artwork of Sonic and Shadow eating ice cream together, holding hands, and doing their taxes. But Mandy, that isn't true to Sonic and Shadow's dynamic. Yeah, I know. It's fan art. During the 2023 Otherworld stories, Sega of Japan came out and said, "Go bold and give us your interpretation." It's clear that they want us to create because it keeps us invested in the franchise. I've limited my time on Twitter and even Sonic YouTube because everyone is just talking about canon this and canon that and how it's all out of whack. Everything is wrong, and it's just exhausting and isn't that fun for me anymore. In the beginning, I said that the purpose of this Iceberg video is not to convince people or convert anyone into Sonadow fans. I mean, if it did happen, hi, welcome to the fandom. But this deep dive was meant to be enjoyed and bring you laughter, regardless if you're a fan or not. I'm not gonna lie, I used to want to convince people and show them the light. Not just about Sonadow, but other topics too. But after seeing so much unproductive discourse within the Sonic fandom, and how abrasive the infighting gets over something so minuscule, I changed my mind about it and felt that it's not worth it. It's a losing battle. People are going to gravitate towards whatever suits their narrative or headcanon. That is just how it is and how it always will be. I mean, as human beings, we all project our feelings on these characters and relationships. It's normal, and that is how most people enjoy it. Who are we to shame and rip that away from other people? To the fans that are adamant about the accuracy of Sonic characterization and making these lengthy Twitter threads of how everyone's interpretation is wrong and how they don't really understand the characterization, genuine question, but what are you trying to achieve? What's the end game here? Because to me, it just comes off as you trying to be the loudest voice in the room. And the framing of these arguments radiate pick-me energy. Oh, I'm not like the other Sonadow fans. I'm sorry, that's probably not what you want to hear, but that is just how it comes off to me. And it seems like this alienates more people than convinces them. Do you want to know something? For the longest time, I refused to look at the Japanese translations of 3D Sonic games because the people who talked about it were being so obnoxious and saying how Western fans don't have a good grip on characterization. So I just didn't do it out of sheer spite until I got re-involved in the Sonadow fandom a few years ago. And I know I'm not the only one who felt that way. So maybe food for thought. You might want to reevaluate your approach if you're genuinely trying to convince people. Anyway, I know talking about fandom discourse is a huge tangent, but I figured that if you are this deep in the video, you're probably a Sonadow fan. But if you're not, wow, thank you so much for watching this far. I want to end this iceberg on a high note with this one obscure detail in Shadow the Hedgehog. In Lethal Highway's hero mission, Shadow partners with Sonic and chases after Black Doom's alien ship. After running into Sonic, the two pass by this billboard of a wedding ring with a text that says, "You need this," and "need" is italicized. Oh, the subliminal messaging. That's literally a sign that Sonic and Shadow are destined to get married. All joking aside, I love the clever double meaning behind this. You need this beautiful ring for your marriage. It's a symbol of your love, after all. You need rings to survive. Very clever, Sonic team, very clever. I think it's funny that it's shown in the Sonic mission specifically. Lethal Highway is the only stage where the sign appears, and it even shows up on the preview image in the game. But after all this time, there are so many of these little coincidences. Maybe Sonic Team was trying to give us this message the entire time. We need this. We need Sonadow. We cannot live our lives without it. We need the Sonadow Collector's Cup. We need Sonadow Generations. We need the Sonadow Halloween t-shirt. We need the Sonadow pants and best friend necklaces. We need Sonadow pancakes. Sonic and Shadow even tell each other, "You need me, not as much as you need me." Sonic Team carefully crafted a dynamic for millions of people to obsess over, further cementing their legacy for creating the most iconic rivalry duo of all time. This is bigger than the whole sky. These two are as rare as a pair of shooting stars. The spun threads of fate are spinning. It's destiny for these two. Will we get to see the sparks on the horizon? Will we see these two black holes end their little dance and finally combine? Only time will tell. Before we end things off, I want to take the time to recognize and celebrate all of the brilliant and talented artists featured in this video, and thank them for allowing me to show their work. The very first Sonadow artwork I showed in this video is by Sony Sakura. Their Sonadow Pride Life piece is so iconic, and I felt that it was really fitting to show in the Sonic Adventure 2 section. This piece in particular really makes me think of the Sonadow fandom as a whole, and how many LGBT Sonic fans have Sonadow as their comfort ship. But I also want to highlight these other amazing pieces by Sony. I think my favorite artwork by Sony so far is this sketch of Shadow putting a flower on Sonic's ear. So cute! You can find Sony Sakura on Twitter, Tumblr, Blue Sky, and AO3. Up next, we have Hazardous Aaron. I love how sweet and soft his Sonadow artwork is, but also he has really great dark and edgy works of Shadow, and it looks really cool. I also love this piece of Shadow accompanying Rouge on a shopping trip. I knew Rouge would be a Vivienne Westwood girly. You can find Aaron on Twitter under the username Hazardous Aaron. This piece was done by Silver Rowan. I love a good flirty Sonic and unamused or unsure Shadow. I also really like how expressive Shadow is in this piece right here. Even though this is movie Shadow, it really brings me back to Shadow the Hedgehog, the game. Silver Rowan makes beautiful artwork for other fandoms you might recognize, and you can find him on Twitter and Blue Sky under the name Silver Rowan, as well as Tumblr under the name Elite Silver Rowan. This fabulous cheetah Shadow and zebra Sonic is by Rush, aka SA2 Sonic. This is so well done. I love that Rush's Sonadow art really brings out that flirty vibe that I love about the ship. Again, I love a good flirty Sonic and flustered Shadow. I also love this Domino Shadow riding a little Vespa. He looks so cute and determined. Once again, you can find Rush on Twitter under the name SA2 Sonic. I didn't feature any artwork from this person, but I'd like to shout out Wendy for translating Sonic's Japanese cutscenes into English for Western fans to enjoy. In my opinion, Wendy really is the face of the Japanese Sonic fandom. Brownie Hideout is basically my go-to website for reading all of the Sonic Channel stories, interviews, and Japanese manuals. She has been translating Sonic games for at least a decade, maybe even longer. Not only that, but also archiving and preserving really obscure media. All of the hard work and time she's put in is greatly appreciated. You can find Wendy on Twitter under the name Sonadow Lesbians, great name by the way, as well as Tumblr under the name Sonadow Fujoshis. And of course, she is on YouTube where you can watch her translation videos of various Sonic games. Next we have Wowie, the Sonic and the Black Knight connoisseur. I really admire her passion for that game and all of the beautiful Lansani, Arthur Lot work she's made. Everything about her art is just breathtaking. The character portrayals and their expressions, the absolutely stunning backgrounds are so amazing and innovative. I really love that about Wowie. I also want to thank Wowie for all of her advice and support and holding me accountable throughout the video making process for the Sonadow Iceberg. You can find her on Twitter, Tumblr, Blue Sky, and AO3. This gorgeous Sonadow art is by Via Curse Casting. Let me tell you, Via's work is absolutely stunning, iconic, radiant, dazzling, beautiful. Everything about her art is amazing, and I admire that her work represents the different sides of Sonadow. You have sweet, romantic, funny, dramatic, and everything in between. You can find Via Curse Casting on Twitter and Tumblr. This glorious Werehog Sonic and Shadow piece is by Jib, aka Candy Pirate. I think Jib's work really brings out the grit that you see in Sonic and Shadow. Also, the backgrounds are just really sublime, like this gorgeous starry sky, and also this piece. I love how the city lights reflect on Sonic and Shadow. It's just really beautiful. Jib is on Twitter and YouTube under the name Candy Pirate. This charming Lansani artwork is by HS. One thing I want to say is I really admire her bravery and putting her work out there at a very young age, and also how experimental her artwork is. I really dig how sharp Sonic and Shadow's quills are, especially with her Sonic.exe artwork. I just love the horror vibe altogether. You can find HS on Twitter as well as YouTube. I absolutely adored this Sonic, Shadow, and Jet love triangle art by Corrupted Quiet. They also go by Chris. Their work is just so fun and lighthearted. I really love how expressive Sonic and Shadow are in Chris's artwork. You can find them on Twitter and Blue Sky under the name Corrupted Quiet, as well as Tumblr under the name The Corrupted Quiet One. This incredible piece is by Sushi Barton. Very majestic and divine. The backgrounds in particular really shine for me. Sushi's work is really fresh and magical and looks like something out of a storybook. Very reminiscent of Paper Mario 64. To me, anyway. You can find Sushi Barton on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. Here we have Maya Morning, a fellow Sonadow Swiftie. I absolutely adore her Shadow Swiftie artwork. And may I just say, completely ahead of her time. She posted this artwork before the Sonic Frontiers Twitter takeover. Her Sonadow work and Sonic work in general is so funny, always a great pick-me-up, but Maya also has an original comic called The Monster at My Door. I finally started reading it and it's really good. The characters, the writing, the atmosphere, absolutely spectacular. Be sure to check out Maya's comic and find her on Twitter and YouTube. This beautiful Sonic and Shadow Mission Street piece is by Toffee. I really adore how dreamy and ethereal Toffee's work is. Not only are the characters expressive and well done, but the effort and detail that she puts in her backgrounds are incredible, experimental, and, you know what, dare I say, avant-garde. At this point, you can probably tell that I really admire a good background. I think my favorite artwork from Toffee so far is this piece where Shadow sees Sonic in his reflection and is trying to break it. Absolutely fantastic. You can find Toffee on Twitter under the name Toffee Lights and on Instagram as Toffee Uwa. This soft and tender Sonadow Chow Garden Cuddle is by Mushi, aka Chow Daycare. Chow Daycare has quite a bit of sweet Sonadow with the occasional spice on the side. Both types are so well done, and I really love how the soft and fun aspects of the ship are brought out in Mushi's work. You can find her on Twitter under the name Chow Daycare. Again, thank you so much for your support and letting me showcase your wonderful work in this video. And you know what? Thank you for being brave and putting yourself out there. For the longest time, Sonadow has been generally despised by the Sonic fandom, and I can't imagine having to endure a lot of bigotry and harassment over your work. Something you've spent a lot of time and effort on, whereas you don't really get that type of backlash with many straight pairings. And while it's still somewhat divisive among the general fandom today, things are significantly better than it was several years ago. We can finally tell Sonadow jokes without being pestered by countless homophobes, and your work and talent has contributed towards the acceptance of queer representation in the franchise. More importantly, your work has brought a lot of joy and touched the hearts of many people. I can't speak for all Sonadow fans, but I hope you know that your work has cheered me up on really bad days. So thank you again. And if there are any aspiring artists, writers, or content creators watching and you're unsure if you want to put yourself out there, just go for it. Don't let your fear of not being good enough or being perceived as cringe hold you back. Life is short. Each day we live is a day closer to death, so why not spend your time doing something that you want to do? Draw that artwork, write that fanfic, put that video together, make that video game. Just go for it. I believe in you. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching all the way through. Putting this video together was an experience, but I had a lot of fun throughout the process. I am so sorry this wasn't uploaded during Pride Month. I really tried, but of course life got in the way, and Sega kept flinging Sonadow at us. But you know what? Every month is Pride Month on this channel, baby. Please be sure to check out and follow all the content creators mentioned in this video. Links are in the description. I also wanted to give a very special thank you to Reactive Factory for providing me feedback throughout the entire process. I am beyond grateful for all of your input and support. Honestly, Ray, I had so many doubts starting this, and I don't think I would have gone through with making the Iceberg video had it not been for your encouragement, so thank you. Please check out Reactive Factory. They are a visionary. Their work is absolutely sublime, and I feel so lucky to be able to call them my friend. Regardless of your opinions about the ship, I hope you enjoyed this video. I've been a Sonadow fan since I was about 15. At that time, I finally finished Sonic Battle after all those years of struggling through the Knuckles story, and started playing Shadow the Hedgehog out of morbid curiosity because that game was picked apart so much. It's really interesting to see how much things have changed since the 2010s, in a good way. There's a lot to appreciate about Sonic and Shadow's relationship, and I think it's cool to see how their relationship has progressed throughout the years in the games and the Sonic Channel stories. Like I said before, Sonic Team created the most iconic rival relationship in all of video games, in my opinion. And with all the excitement for the Year of Shadow, it's clear that fans are still passionate about Sonic and Shadow and the dynamic they share. If you've watched my previous videos, you might have noticed that I have been hinting at a Sonadow type of video for a very long time. You could find the little hints and Easter eggs as early as my 2-hour Mario video from a couple years ago. Admittedly, it was originally a relationship analysis video that I had spent a long time working on. But I'm sort of lost, to be honest with you. I've been working on that analysis on and off again since fall 2020. It's really embarrassing how long this has taken me. It's currently sitting at 50 pages, and I'm still not done with it. But as I've looked back on it, I'm not really feeling it anymore, and I haven't really touched it much this year, if at all. As disappointing as this might be, I've been thinking about leaving it behind, especially after completing the iceberg. It's really hard to throw that one away because that is literally years of work down the drain, but at the same time, I currently don't feel inclined to keep going. It's not like the Sonadow passion died because this video was also 50 pages and I had a blast through the entire process. Wow, I'm just now realizing that I've collectively written 100 pages about this pairing, and I do not know how to feel about that. Maybe 100 pages is kind of cheating. I did recycle several of my points and jokes in the event that I decided to scrap the analysis altogether. The script definitely needs to be reworked. It's messy and wordy. A lot of things I wrote don't resonate with me anymore. My opinions have definitely changed since late 2020. If I were to continue this, I might be better off just starting over. But when I was writing the relationship analysis, I wanted to convince people. Like I talked about before, I tried to frame the analysis in a way that would be palatable to general audiences, and I think that is why the spark isn't there anymore. At some point, I wasn't writing it because I loved their relationship. I was writing it to show people the light and convince them that Sonadow is valid. There are other videos that I've scrapped because I just wasn't feeling that spark that my uploaded videos have provided me, and it's not a big deal. The way I see it is, at least it helped me engage my brain and improve my writing, but I won't lie, this Sonadow relationship analysis is hard to let go. I sometimes felt like Diane from BoJack Horseman trying to finish her memoirs. Like, if I don't finish this and throw it all away, then what did all this amount to? What is my purpose now after throwing away years of work? But I feel a lot more content as I finish this video. I mean, this video was pure passion. I was ecstatic to write about most of the things I've witnessed as a Sonadow fan. And I know an iceberg isn't the same as a relationship analysis, but I at least got to talk through all the key moments Sonic and Shadow shared throughout the games. And I have a lot of other videos that I'm really excited to finish. I've realized that if I'm not feeling the spark and that flame isn't reigniting no matter what I do, it's just not gonna happen. I'm not saying that it's gone forever, but it's a sign that I need to move on and try new things. But regardless, I am very much open to revisiting the Sonadow Iceberg a year from now, because I am positive that there will be significant updates. I have one more completed Sonic video, and that's it. I'm done with Sonic for a little while. I'm taking a break from the franchise to focus on other things. I want to talk about Mario and bug fables and nostalgic stuff from the 2000s that may not be related to video games. Even though Sonic is easier for me to write about, I feel like I've been going through perpetual brain rot. It's not healthy, so I need to step away from the fandom a little bit. I also want to challenge myself and write about other topics that I'm just as passionate about. But this video has gone on long enough. If you're still here, comment with this emoji so I know that you went the distance. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sticking around this long. I really appreciate it. Take care. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.